Romero?
Here.
Romero. Here. Huff?
Here.
Huff here. Alquist? Hancock? Lou? Maldonado? Price? Semidian? Wyland. Do not have a quorum.
Okay, it's the chair and the vice chair. Sergeants, if you could please call the members so we can get this committee going. Senator Huff, would you object for us starting as a subcommittee?
No problem.
All right, and I understand maybe you, since it's you and I, you've got a bill. Do you want to take it up right away?
My witnesses are still assembling, so can we do...
I have a bill. Why don't I give you the gavel, and I'll go ahead and take up my bill.
Thank you.
Might as well get this moving.
I like it.
I would like to do it soon.
Oh, yeah.
Please go ahead.
All right, thank you. This is Senate Bill 956, Teacher STEM Training. And let me first of all thank the dedicated staff of the committee for their proposed amendments. These are reflected on page 4 of the analysis. Senate Bill 956 redirects $5 million of Federal Workforce Investment Act WIA funds to the California Workforce Investment Board, and this is to allocate to school districts, county offices of education, or charter schools to provide intensive examination preparation courses to retrain laid off and out-of-field teachers. And these teachers will be retrained to meet subject matter competency requirements for teaching science, mathematics, or industrial and technology education. The funds would come from the governor's 15% discretionary fund within the WIA allocation. In addition to the more than 16,000 teachers who lost their jobs last year, we know that thousands of pink slips have been issued around the state this year. We know that California is experiencing an achievement gap in which students, on average, perform below students in most other states on standardized tests when it comes to proficiency in mathematics. So this is an area where we think it's a strong win-win. Laid-off teachers will be retrained to begin to focus more on those areas that are most needed to meet the demands of a global economy. Students, especially high-poverty students, students in the lowest decile students, African-American students, Latino students who have for too long been in a classroom in a disproportionate fashion, having a teacher teaching math who does not have a credential in that subject matter will benefit from this as well. We think it's a good win-win. There's no opposition. I would ask for your aye vote.
Witnesses in support?
Witnesses in support? Any witnesses opposed? Any questions by our other committee member?
Just out of curiosity, because you didn't get comment, how might this affect the current WIB projects? You know, if we take money out of this, and so what do they have to give up to?
Well, it's discretionary, and again, too, it's one where I wouldn't take a look at it as what is one giving up, but what are the gains? These are funds that are to be directed towards needed projects. We know we have a shortage of teachers in math and science. We know we have laid-off teachers, many of them who could be retrained to go into those areas, which would make them also perhaps more competitive, employable in those high-demand areas where we know we have shortages. Right. So rather than looking at it as the glass half empty, I would look at it as the glass half full. How are we getting there?
Okay.
All right. Well, in that do you want to close?
I ask for your aye vote.
All right. In that we're still a subcommittee, we'll wait till we have a quorum and then take that vote up. Thank you for your presentation. Let's see. Do we have other authors here?
Carol, do you have any votes?
I do, but that's just the one that you want, the time-specific one.
Oh, yeah.
It's 11 o'clock.
Okay, sergeants, do we have any authors interested in having their bills heard? I mean, maybe that's just Senator Lowenthal. All right. Please walk right up. We've been anxiously awaiting your presence.
I wanted to make a grand entrance.
Okay.
What would you like?
Let's start with file item 10. This is Senate Bill 1161.
This is the bill on material inaccuracies. And first, I'd like to accept the committee's amendments on page 4 of the staff analysis. I want to thank the committee staff. I also want to thank the Republican staff for their assistance on this bill and making it a stronger and, I think, a better bill. The existing law that we have requires the Office of Public School Construction, OPSC, to report to the State Allocation Board, or the SAB, any false certifications that are found in the school facility program that, in terms of school facility program eligibility or funding-related information. Furthermore, the law requires that the SAB find material inaccuracy for false certification and to impose certain penalties on the offending school district. So that's kind of the background on. And so the concept that we're really dealing with is, what is a false certification? That's really what the SAB and the OPSC have to deal with. When you're applying for funding, either for eligibility or funding, it's a very complex and dozens of detailed documents. It's not uncommon for these self-certified, remember, school districts can self-certify, to contain errors. Most errors are found and rectified during the state application review process. Some errors may not be found until there is a detailed audit that occurs. These errors are not necessarily material to the state. Remember, material inaccuracy supposedly means a significant impact and giving an advantage in terms of funding to that school district that would not have occurred if, in fact, there had not been that inaccuracy. Unfortunately, current law does not distinguish between errors that are material to the state and then errors that have absolutely no impact at all upon the state in terms of funding or eligibility. The term material, as I mentioned, carries the meaning in law of relevant and significant. Currently, all certifications are deemed material inaccuracies regardless today of the significance of the error to the state. What SB 1161 does, it strikes the term false certification and provides that a material inaccuracy can only be imposed if there's been a funding advantage to that district, if that certification, self-cert, actually leads to some kind of an advantage to that district in terms of funding that they would not have happened without that certification. The bill will provide efficiencies and savings to the state and school districts by eliminating unnecessary reviews, reports, and appeals when there's actually no benefit to the state, when there's no allegation that the district benefited in a way that really impacted their ability to receive eligibility or funding from the state. SB 1161 will distinguish between material inaccuracies that unfairly provide funding to school districts and simple errors that have no material impact to the state. I ask for your aye vote.
Okay, let's hear from witnesses in support.
Aye vote.
Madam Chair and members, Tom Duffy for the Coalition for Adequate School Housing. CASH is in support of this measure. When we developed the new program in 1998, SB 50, districts were given a good deal of discretion to certify certain information that was provided to the state. Jack O'Connell, when he was in the Senate, determined that it would be important to have a provision in the event a district fudged, and that's why the current statute exists. We're in support of this because it gives the State Allocation Board discretion to determine, as the good senator mentioned, something that was intentional and something that was an error. So we are in strong support of this and ask for your aye vote. Thank you very much.
Other witnesses in support?
Madam Chair and members, Ian Padilla, representing the County Schools Facility Consortium, also in strong support for the reasons previously stated. Thank you.
Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Senator Lowenthal, if you could just once again address the question that was raised in the committee analysis with respect to, in trying to address for this bill, specifically what you're trying to address. Is this a transparency issue or an inconsistency problem? If you could just address that.
It's also to really, I mean, a material inaccuracy is a serious blow. Let me phrase it this way: is a serious blow to school districts. They terribly avoid it. It's a humiliation. It's an embarrassment. It means that they cannot self-certify. They're kind of put on the bad list for 5 years. And so what we're trying to say is those school districts that have falsely engaged in inaccuracies that lead to some kind of funding advantage for them. They have filed for. That should still be that should be under the terms of a material inaccuracy. But those school districts that, because of the complex, that have just made errors in their application, that have no way impact the state, they do not get ahead of the list in any way, it in no way impacts their funding for the state, that still has to be corrected, but that's not a serious death blow to the school district. So we're just trying to clarify what is a material inaccuracy. In law, material inaccuracy means a significant and relevant impact, and we're trying to define it in such a way to develop a closer relationship between school districts and clarify the role of the state versus school districts, telling school districts these are the rules of what you have to do to have. Right now it's very vague. Any kind of inaccuracy that they haven't could be a false certification under that, and that is just too broad. And we spend a lot of state resources doing audits when no one is claiming anybody had any advantage at all. This clarifies the language.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the committee? Okay, Senator Lowenthal, we don't yet have a quorum, but once we establish a quorum, a motion to pass will be made at that time.
Well, thank you.
You have a second measure.
I have a second measure.
File item 12.
And that second measure has to do with high-performance school facilities program. And this is a measure that is where I am the co-author or joint author with Senator Pavley is my joint author on this. And here, too, I'd like to accept staff-recommended amendments on page 4 and 5 of the analysis. In addition, we'd like to place an urgency clause in the bill. Members, in the year 2006, we passed a historic bond package. One of those major bonds was Proposition 1D. In Proposition 1D in 2006, we set aside $100 million in general obligation bond funds for high-performance school programs to provide for the construction of environmentally high-performing school facilities. What has happened, though, is school districts have struggled to navigate the layers of red tape which are required by this program, leaving over $80 million still untouched in program. It has been unclaimed in terms of trying to access the ability to do in their modernization, and also all of the $18 million, it has been very difficult to target those schools that are going through modernization. There's only been one modernization grant that has also tried to use the high-performance schools. The rest of the money, even in the $18 million that's been spent, has been all on new construction. So we're trying to figure out how are we going to modernize existing school facilities and bring them up to environmentally high-performing standards. And what SB 1193 does is it offers a streamlined, efficient incentive program that will get the money on the streets to build environmentally high-performing schools or to modernize to environmentally high-performing schools. Will create jobs, reduce energy costs, will save districts money, and it's a healthy environment for our students. SB 1193 provides a $250,000 base amount per school to modernize buildings if they meet high-performance standards, if they perform, and they will be able to get an incentive grant. Provides additional funds for those programs that exceed these minimal standards for high-performance schools. The bill offers school districts a real incentive to create green schools and to create more jobs out there. I ask for your aye vote.
Senator Lowenthal, before we turn to the witnesses in support, can you please clarify which amendments you are accepting?
Yes, I can.
For example,
Yeah, I'm just going to
item
go to
number
right.
4, starting on page 3, carrying over to page 4, are you accepting that amendment?
There's staff recommendations in item number 4 that the bill be amended to link the purposes outlined in the bill to the funding authorized in the Educational Code. We are accepting that. The staff recommendation that the bill be amended to delete the requirement that 20 points be achieved and instead require the project to achieve the number of points necessary for meeting high-performance criteria as determined by the SAB and certified by the DSA. We're accepting that amendment. And we're also accepting the amendment on page 5, item number 9, that the bill be amended to delete subdivision G and allow the funding to be available for reimbursement and grants for any qualifying modernization funding application received after the bill's effective date.
All right.
Those are accepted as author's amendments.
Thank you. Witnesses in support.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Cesar Diaz with the State Building and Construction Trades Council. We're in strong support of this legislation. Breaks through the bureaucracy and gets a lot of this money out to the school districts where it's much needed, cleans air around the schools, and puts our people back to work. And we urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Jeremy Smith here on behalf of the California Labor Federation, also in support for the reasons Cesar stated. Thank you.
All others, just simply state your name and that you are in support of the measure.
Madam Chair, members, Tom Duffy for cash in support of this measure. Thank you.
Madam Chair and members, Ian Padilla with the County School Facilities Consortium in strong support.
Dave Walrath, Small School Districts Association, in support.
Eric Bakke, Los Angeles Unified, also in strong support.
Thank you. Are there any witnesses in opposition to the measure? Okay. Senator Lowenthal, I know that we've had conversations as
Yes.
well, and I'm comfortable moving this vehicle forward. I'm interested in having this complement, but not to compete with the regulatory process. There have been some
Right.
questions and
I am
concerns
too.
about that.
And we'll work in any way to make sure that it does complement and not.
And I want to just suggest a couple of points. I'm not asking you to take them now, but I would like to ask you to think about them, and we can have further discussion about perhaps including these additional amendments that until the regulatory process results in a thorough review of the issues, the committee's recommendation for you to look at in potentially amending the bill would be first to delete any references to third-party verification, and that would be in response to concerns about potential conflicts of interest. So I'd ask you to think about if
I
you're ready.
certainly will think about that.
And then the second one would be to consider reducing the base grant amount to $100,000 until there is evidence that a different amount is more appropriate.
And that's been a issue that we've struggled with, and I certainly will work with you and consider that too. What that base amount has been one in which we've kind of dealt with all the stakeholders, but there's no clear define, and this has been the consensus, but we certainly would like to work with you in talking about that.
Okay, and then having said that, I am going to say that we would like to have the bill potentially be brought back to committee in its final form. This is the first policy committee. We don't want any delays. We want it to move forward, let the conversations continue, but we do retain the right to pull it back to committee to take a look at this bill in its final form before it gets to the Senate floor.
Certainly.
All right. Okay, any questions or comments from the committee members? Okay, we still don't yet have a quorum. We will move the bill when we do get that.
Thank you.
Okay, no other items?
That's it.
That's it.
I have
All right,
some others in other committees if you'd like me to present those today. No, all right.
All right. We see the pro tem. Senator Duchesne is the next person in line. I'm going to let the budget chair and the pro tem negotiate. The budget has won. There's hope for California. All right, Senator Duchesne, you've got file item 2, and before you begin your bill, I want to just acknowledge, and I'm sure they're going to be testifying on behalf, it's an honor to have with us in Sacramento today the nation's largest Latino civil rights advocacy group, and that is the National Council of La Raza. I spoke with them earlier today. I know Senator Cedillo was there welcoming. I see members wearing the badges in the audience. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being in the Education Committee, and we look forward to working with the NCLR on so many issues pertaining to education and our children in California. Thank you for being here. Senator Duchesne.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I think I appreciate Senator Steinberg's forbearance, but he does need me to get to education to vote for his other bill, to labor to get to vote for his other bill today. Let me just say initially that there are changes to this bill from when it was first introduced, and most of those are a product of discussions between ourselves, the sponsors, CTA, and other opponents of the bill that were initially opposed or concerned. We have tried to address many of those concerns. I continue to understand their concern about second-grade testing and testing in general, and frankly, I agree with them, but we don't think this is the vehicle for addressing those issues. Although we have tried to do that in the past in other budgets, and I've supported those bills. In fact, this bill is really just aimed at how do we get reliable testing for the testing we do. We can argue for endlessly about whether we should do the amount of testing we're doing, how many tests we're doing. We hope that Congress will reauthorize NCLB and get us a clearer slate and be able to help us merge AYP and API. But at the moment, that's not the reality that we face. And the reality that our children are facing every day and that our schools are facing every day is that people are using these test scores that are testing children in languages they don't understand and acting like those tell you that they aren't progressing and that they don't know their language. And the best example is obviously math. Speaking English doesn't help you. You can be good in math, but if you're taking the test in English and you don't speak English yet, you are likely to fail the test even if you really do know the math. There are tests now available in this state that can assess folks in the primary language, particularly in Spanish at least, which is about 80% of our English language learners. We have that availability. We ought to use it, and we ought to get reliable testing that allows schools to know whether they really are improving or not, whether their students are getting the material, and what their true progress is. Unlike some previous versions of this bill that I've carried in the past, this one doesn't change things as dramatically.
One moment. Let's go ahead. I think we have a quorum. Call the roll, please.
Romero?
Here.
Romero here. Huff?
Here.
Huff here. Alquist? Here. Alquist here. Hancock? Lou? Lou here. Maldonado? Price? Price here. Semidian? Wyland? You have five. You have
Okay,
four.
we do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. What the bill does primarily, two or three major things that it does try to change. With respect to the standards aligned tests in English, it would require additional accommodations, as other states like Texas and many others have done. It requires accommodation to think about things like glossaries, definitions in English, and other language modifications for those who are still English language learners to be able to understand and respond appropriately with what knowledge they have of the subject matter. It would also require that the highest test score results of whether they take the primary language test. In many cases, you have to take both the primary language test and the English test. Whichever one you get the higher score on is the one that ought to count, because it really is related to which language you are most literate in at that given time. It does not change the current requirement of testing them in certain English language learners in the primary language, nor that they also be tested in English, although personally I find that one difficult, but we'll accept it for the moment. We would like to accept two authors' amendments on page 5 of the analysis to delete the requirement to modify those standards tests now and allow that to be done with the successor test that is being planned with the new commission for 2013. And with respect to the advisory committee that's suggested, we would agree that there ought to be an advisory committee, but we'd like to work with staff to draft the language in such a way that we ensure that a majority of the people on that advisory committee are people with demonstrated expertise in developing academic assessments specific to English language learners and persons who have worked with the data specific to English language learners.
Okay, we'll accept those as authors' amendments.
Thank you. With those amendments, again, we would point out we do change the pool of English language learners to those who are enrolled for less than 12 months, which is current law, to those who have been enrolled in a U.S. school for less than 36 months to allow greater time for that transition transition to English, and also that it's got to be English learners, obviously, who are literate in their primary language. At a very young age, sometimes that is not the case, and then maybe English is their best language for purposes of this. It would allow pupils who are native English speakers and enrolled in dual language programs to take the primary language assessment, to monitor their progress in the second language, and it continues to include English language learners who are instructed in their primary language as those who take both tests. Beginning in 2012-13 school year, it would require the highest test scores of the primary language assessments or the English assessment to be used for the purposes of calculating API and AYP. By July of 2013, the inclusion of primary language assessment results in any successor measures that are dealt with when we revise the testing. If we revise the API, AYP scheme at all, that we include the accommodations and the primary language tests. Without this, members, many of our school districts are labeled as failing when in fact the students do know the materials. They just are not, we test them in English as we teach English throughout, we test for English language development, but then we give these standardized tests in the language that we're still developing. And when you fail the test because you don't speak English, just as most of us here, well, Ms. Lou, let me say, I got to think of a language none of us know. In my district, they did the test with the Chamber of Commerce. They used Chinese. And they said, okay, let's take the test. Well, nobody passed it, but everybody knew all the answers once they knew what the questions were. And it is that kind of problem that these young students are facing every day, and then they are labeled failing, their schools are labeled failing, their teachers are labeled failing, only because they aren't given an opportunity to show what they really do know and to have that score count. That's the goal of this bill, and we'd ask for your aye vote.
Okay, 2 witnesses in support.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Martha Zaragoza-Diaz, and I am representing the sponsors of the bill, Californians Together Coalition and the California Association for Bilingual Education. The senator summarized the major provisions of the bill very well as emphasizing the need to have an accountability system that addresses the unique needs of English learners, especially those English learners that are not yet proficient in English. I would like to make 2 additional points with regards to the accommodations that are called for in the bill. You were given a paper that speaks to what are the other states doing with regards to primary language assessment and other accommodations that they give for their English learners. Also, this page shows that you can include the scores of primary language assessments into the calculation of the AYP because these states have used their primary language assessments for NCLB accountability. If you take a look at this chart or this page, you will see that New York not only provides assessments in English and Spanish, it provides assessments in Haitian Creole, Korean, Russian, and Spanish. Oregon provides assessments in English, Russian, and Spanish. So the inclusion of the primary language assessments into the calculation of the AYP can be done. And so I just wanted to point that out to you, Madam Chairman, and the members of the committee. Additionally, with regards to the issue of why we need this bill and why do we want to include the calculation of the primary language assessments into the state's federal and state accountability system. It's because we want to be able to show and demonstrate what these English learners can do. And you're given another sheet. It's called Math California Standards Test Scores Achievement Gap. This sheet displays very well. It shows English learners that have been here for more than 12 months that took the math test, and those English learners that took the Spanish standards test in math. And you will see that those English learners that took the standards test in Spanish really did much better than those English learners that took the test in English. And you will see that in grade 3, the difference was significant. It was 33% more English learners did better, showing what they can do in the language that they know, or that they're proficient in with regards to math. So again, we believe that this, again, provides the support and the rationale in terms of why we want to include these primary language assessment scores in the AYP API. This is not an issue that's new to you. I have been before you for the past 6-8 years, I think. I'm losing track of time, with regards to the fact that we need to do something about our primary language assessments for our English learners. We do not want to continue to mislabel these students. We don't want to continue to mislabel their teachers or their schools, because that's what put often enough, that's what makes these schools go into program improvement. We don't want to do that. We have an opportunity now to make those changes. We have an opportunity, as called for in the bill, for future measures to also include primary language assessments into the new state system. So with that, I would urge your support. I have with me Irma Villanueva, who is a principal of an elementary school, and she will speak to the need for this bill.
Okay, this will be our second witness.
Good morning, Madam Chairperson and members of the committee. I'm Irma Villanueva. I'm principal at an elementary school in the South Oxnard area in Ventura County. My school district is K-8. I have 74% English learners in my school, and a large proportion of them are migrant farm workers' children, so they move around a lot, and they are still developing their English language proficiency. My school is a program improvement school. We are a year 3 program improvement school. However, this is despite the fact that we have data showing our students have made gains. We've made like 250 plus points in API in the last 10 years, and we're closing the achievement gap according to the AYP measurements. Our data is actually better than the districts and the counties as far as closing the achievement gap. However, we did not make the AYP threshold last year. We did, however, make safe harbor, which means that we're increasing the number of children to proficiency levels, and because of that reason, we have a stay. Hopefully, we'll do it again, and we'll be able to get out of program improvement. But however, as my school is a program improvement school, I have sent out a letter every year that says my school is a failure. My children are failing because they're being asked to take a test in a language that they don't understand or they're not proficient in yet. Our students do take the California Standards Test and the Spanish Standardized Test anyway. So what we're asking is that that the scores of the children are already taking those tests, that their scores that demonstrate their knowledge, the best demonstrates what they know, be taken into accountability for what they can do. I will give you an example, of how a test in a language that you don't understand affects you. I am an immigrant child. I came from Mexico, having been to school in Mexico, and I remember being given an exam when I came in that I didn't understand what I was being asked to do, and in consequence, I was placed in a classroom where I sat in the back of the room until I personally moved myself in to my reading group and demonstrated that I knew how to read in Spanish, I knew how to write in Spanish, and I started reading my English text, my reading book with a Spanish phonetic system, because that's what I knew. That test did not demonstrate to my teachers at that time that I was literate. They considered me illiterate. And that's what is happening right now, where our children have a lot of knowledge. They are acquiring English. They are acquiring academic content, yet they're being deemed failure because they're giving a test, or they're being judged on a test that they don't understand. And it's a matter, I believe, of access and opportunity. So thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, and for sharing with us, I think, a very, true and unfortunate chapter in too many decades of the history in California.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, all others, simply identify yourself and me too.
Sure. Good morning, Madam Chair and members. Edgar Sassuet on behalf of Los Angeles Unified School District. All I'd like to say is just thank Senator Ducheney and Ms. Zaragoza Diaz and the broader coalition. I know you've been at this for a while. We support the changes. We agree that we're looking for fair and reliable testing. We urge your support.
That's a me too. All right. There's no opposition to the measure, and we've got a big queue ahead of us.
Yeah.
Just simply me too.
Isabel Garcia, California Teachers Association. Want to thank the author and sponsor for working with us. The amendments remove our opposition.
Who was opposition?
Maria Quesada from the California Association for Bilingual Education, and me too. We support this bill.
Norm Gold Associates, the author of the two-page item on NCLB accommodations in other states. Just want to call your attention to the fact that the vast majority of the impact of this bill will be for tests given in English. Other states have made appropriate accommodations for English learners in their English test, and that's one of the major impacts of this bill. I support the bill.
Sherry Griffith with the Association of California School Administrators in support.
Thank you. Any others in support of the measure? We did not receive opposition. Questions from the committee? Senator Alquist.
Not so much a question, but a comment. I know that Senator Duchesne and I have worked on this issue since about
probably the third session I've chaired a similar bill.
1997, I remember being the two of us in Governor Wilson's office on the issue.
Yeah, the first round.
Yes, and as the daughter of an immigrant, I totally relate with what the witness said, because there were times that I would pronounce things in a Greek way, and English was my primary language, but there were two languages, and I was sent to Greek school 3 days a week after American school for 5 years when I was young. I think this bill will help us get a better hold on the puzzle of what kids really know, how they need to be assessed, and how then they can be helped. So I'm very supportive. I would love to be added as a co-author, and I would love to move the bill.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, and Senator Duchesne, I know too, I've authored bills, Senator Escutia. There have been a number of us over the years that have tried to move this issue forward. Let me just, and again too, we'll move it forward once again. Let me ask you, I urge that you hopefully start trying to engage with the governor's office once again. We've had veto after veto, and this is something that's very much needed. Given the demographics of the state of California, this is the moment, this is the time, it must happen. I'd like to be added as a co-author as well. Quickly, conclusion on your part?
No, thank you very much, Madam Chair. This is the most modest version of this. We've tried some broader ones. The most modest, as it were. Just to get it, it's about reliability, and I think there's been a lot of misunderstanding over the years that somehow we're trying to do something that violates 227 or reinstate, different methods of teaching. And the truth is, people will continue to learn English in all of these schools. The question is, if we are going to have these testing systems, which I'm not a big fan of, but if you're going to have them, the least you can do is make them reliable and allow them to count what the children actually are learning. Ask for your aye vote.
Okay, there's a motion on the bill. Secretary, call the roll.
Romero?
Aye.
Romero, aye. Huff?
No.
Huff, no. Alquist?
Aye.
Alquist, aye. Hancock? Lou? Aye. Lou, aye. Maldonado? Price?
Aye.
Price, aye. Semidian? Wyland?
You don't have sufficient.
Okay, 4 votes. The measure's on call.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Senator Steinberg. Senator Steinberg has file item, which file item?
It is. We have the second page.
File item 19. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. This is, right there. SB 1357 is another in a series of efforts to prioritize the California's high school dropout rate and to do something about it. We know that dropping out is a process. It's not an event. It's not a single thing that leads a young person to say, I'm dropping out of school. The process itself is marked by many red flags along the way, usually starting in elementary school, if not sooner. The red flags, of course, include grade retention, course failure, low test scores, behavior problems, all indicia that we are beginning to track through our student data system known as CalPADS. But one of the most basic indicators, student attendance. After all, dropping out is permanent absenteeism, if you will. Student attendance at school is one that CalPADS does not capture at all. Poor attendance, chronic absences in the earliest grades, the studies have shown, is correlated directly with who drops out of high school. We're not just talking about truancy, but absence for any reason. Because even though someone may have an excused absence, if a child's missing a lot of school, they're also not keeping up generally academically. We cannot wait until students are falling behind in the 9th grade or fail the high school exit exam before we intervene. So the bill does the following. It defines chronic absence as missing 10% or more of school days in a year for any reason, excused or unexcused. It uses federal funds to prepare CalPADS to incorporate this attendance data. And then it initiates the development of call it a red flag early warning system, so that districts and schools can request the data for their students and identify who meets this criteria so that they can take action to either address the reason for the absenteeism with the parents, to work obviously more intensely with the student to ensure that the pathway does not lead to dropouts. Some people ask, don't good schools do this already? Well, the good ones do. But we have now the beginnings of the development of this comprehensive data system. And for the schools that aren't doing this on the natural, this is an essential piece of information. They ought to be able to request, either, again, district-wide or school-wide, to be able to intervene and intervene early. I have a couple of expert witnesses here today. David Silver, who's a senior researcher at the National Center for Research on Evaluation Standards and Student Testing at my alma mater, UCLA. And Hetty Chang, the director of the Attendance Counts Initiative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Steinberg. We'll have 2 witnesses in support. So you might want to tell us a quick story about your former student.
Hi, I'm David Silver from Crest at UCLA. I'm here to express the perspective of someone who works with data every day to do evaluations, research on dropout, and school effectiveness, and various state and federal evaluations of programs and policies. What I want to talk about briefly are the 2 things that I think are most important about the gap in the data system. The first is that attendance data are important because they can predict success and failure, as Hetty will talk more about after me. But in a longitudinal analysis of all of the data in LAUSD over 7 years, we found nothing more highly predictive of dropout than attendance, and that went back as far as 7th grade. I know the relationship goes earlier than that, but for 7th graders, those who missed between 0 and 5 days of school graduated with 3 times greater likelihood than those who had 20 or more absences and would fall into this critical early warning figure. So it's an important early warning tool. And as I said, Hetty will talk about that more. I also want to talk about the importance as an outcome measure. Attendance, I think most people probably agree that the CSTs are limited in what they can do in terms of assessing the effectiveness of programs and policies. They work well for certain things, but they're designed for a very specific purpose. And to give an example of an area where they don't work well, we're doing a large-scale evaluation of all the federal after-school programs in the state. And CST scores, or test scores generally, have never been shown to be impacted by an after-school program. But this is a program that affects hundreds of thousands of California families and receives millions, hundreds of millions of federal dollars, which in part depend on our being able to show that these programs work. And one way we'd like to show that they work is that they improve attendance. but the state doesn't have those data available. So what we've had to do is we've had to go district by district across the state and get those data. And you can imagine that's an expensive proposition that costs the state money. And it's a burdensome request to districts who aren't used to reporting it. So having those data already provided to the state, like we do many other important pieces of data, would relieve the burden on the districts. It would provide us with more reliable, consistent data.
All right, thank you. Second witness to testify.
Thank you so much. My name's Hetty Chang, and I'm with the Attendance Counts Initiative, which is a national and state-level initiative to make sure we use attendance data in a way that really matters and informs action. This 10% figure, I want to say, is an empirically based figure, because we found that at 10%, starting in kindergarten, it could predict poor achievement in first grade, and for poor kids, this was long-term. So attendance truly, it's way before high school that it becomes an indicator that you're falling behind and likely to drop out. I also want to make sure that you understand that the issue for us is that it's not that we don't know what to do about improving attendance. There is plenty of experience, national and in California. There are a number of districts who are innovators and who have schools within those districts who have found ways to improve attendance. It's all common sense. The issue is we're not counting so we know when there's a problem in the first place. And it's both counting at the kid level, because we look at truancy, which is only unexcused absence, particularly missing kids at young ages who may be absent when parents can call in and say, my kid is staying at home, and people, in fact, often don't understand that in the early grades. Attendance at school really matters. But more importantly, we don't know when it's reaching high levels in schools. In Baltimore, for example, where there is good state data and state accountability on this, they've seen the range in chronic absence levels from 3% to almost half the kids in an elementary school. If you have half the kids in an elementary school who are missing so much school that they're falling behind, the state ought to know. The school needs to know. We need to know so that we can make sure that we know if kids are underperforming, they're not achieving, they're falling out. Is it because they aren't at school in the first place? That's really key to being able to improve what happens to address the achievement gap here in California. And if we can address it early while kids are young, then it's much less costly than if we try to do it later on. I also think this is about effective use of scarce resources, because there are key community resources, whether it's after school, whether it's health services, whether it's child care programs, that can be used to improve attendance. If we have the data publicly available, then community agencies can partner with schools to make sure that those resources are available in the schools where it's needed most and targeting the kids who need it most. Finally, I just want to say the big problem we have is while school districts have attendance data in their systems, it's very onerous and not easy to make the reports on what are the levels of chronic absence, so we know which are the schools that are facing large numbers of kids who aren't getting to school in the first place. Thank you very much.
Okay, members, we have a long list of those who want to line up to speak in support, so others just simply identify yourself and say you're in support.
Yes, Kevin Wolfwork with the Post-Secondary Education Commission in support. Thank you.
Kamala Harris, District Attorney of San Francisco, in strong support.
Brad Strong, Children Now, in support.
Linda Gallagher, Bay Area Council, representing the business community in support.
Hi. Edgar Saseta, Los Angeles Unified School District, in support.
Thank you.
Heather Barandas on behalf of the Education Trust West, we support.
Deanna Niebuhr from the Partnership for Children and Youth, in support.
Serena Clayton with the California School Health Centers Association, in support.
Jill Howell, Junior Leagues of California, in support.
Liz Guillen with Public Advocates, in support.
We've got several mics. Folks can go ahead and line up.
I'm Bernie Matthews, retired police chief from Alameda, representing Fight Crime, Invest in Kids. We support this. Thank you.
I'm Loretta Whitson, California Association of School Counselors, in support.
Sharon Scott Dow, representing the Advancement Project, in support.
Jeff Freitas with the California Federation of Teachers, in support.
Will Gonzalez with California Family Resource Association, in support.
Fred Jones, California Business Education Association.
Chris Walker on behalf of the California Industrial and Technology Education Association, in support.
Okay, witnesses in opposition.
Thank you, Sherry Skelly Griffith with the Association of California School Administrators. I first want to say for the record that we absolutely 100% support the intent of this measure, and I'd like to portray this as a friendly oppose, and we are working very closely with the Senator's office.
I'm
very
not sure.
friendly.
I have to decide how I'll characterize it.
Okay.
Well, we've seen both in the committee, so we're used to it.
Okay. Really where our members are coming from is the practical aspects of this in the out years. We would love to see the CalPAD system really, really work to support local educators in this work with at-risk students and ensure that they are improving academically. That is absolutely our number one goal. However, what we've seen with CalPADs to this date is that we have done a lot at the state level to make the system technology ready, but we've done very little to support local educators, including classified, certificated, and other administrative staff, in really ensuring that they are trained in providing this data, inputting this data, and analyzing this data. And so we remain concerned that even with the measure being a may versus a shall, that we would like to see language in the measure that ensures that at this juncture that this is not a mandate that will come to districts at a later time unless that is fully funded by the state. And I know that's a fiscal issue, but it truly is a challenge in these budget times. Secondly, in regards to student attendance, we don't have a problem with the state having the chronic absence data, and we think that the warning report concept is very valid and could have great merit. So we appreciate that. Where we would like to recommend to the author some work in the measure is in regards to developing an advisory body that could truly define what the state should collect as it relates to student attendance data. If you look at the bill on page 6, it talks about providing data at the district level, the school site level, the classroom level, and the individual student level. Now, that's going to be 6 million pieces of data, potentially, unless we work it out in the bill, or at least an intent, that every school needs to consider reporting long term. And that's the out years that we're looking at. We want to make sure that the state knows exactly what type of student data that you're looking for, because imagine a high school, 7 courses a day, tracking student attendance, and then potentially, now this would be the extreme, submitting that to the state. We think that the bill would really go further, and we'd like to see the bill continue to move in regards to making sure that we are really fine-tuning what the state wants in regards to this data. So we'd like to work with the author as the bill moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Alquist.
Thank you.
Thank you. I make the following comment, not only as a senator, but as a former high school math teacher and a K-12 guidance counselor. What Senator Steinberg is trying to accomplish should have been done many, many years ago. And I know for a fact that there have been many cases where schools and school districts have not even known when a child has dropped out of the system for weeks and weeks and weeks. This bill says may. It is a soft approach bill. And I certainly think the message to our administrators is that this is something that needs to be done. I'm pleased to be a co-author, and I'd like to move the bill.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Senator Liu.
Well, 2 things is the capacity of CalPADs. Any comment about that? I mean, I know that maybe we should have a hearing on CalPADs, or or whatever, but it doesn't seem to be able to even do what we ask it to do now. And it's headed toward a mandate. If may is fuzzy, but it is necessary information that needs to be collected. I don't disagree with that. It's just how are we going to do it? And I know that the second thing was the federal funding. We have a grant in to help pay for. If we should get the grant, it would help pay for this conversion. But I think problematically, we do have an issue with CalPADs.
One of the reasons why the bill is discretionary, why it has a may instead of a shall, is in recognition of 2 things. Number one, the CalPAD system still needs some work. And secondly, we understand the plight of school districts throughout California in terms of their various responsibilities and their financial situations. But, we have this discussion, if you will, all the time here in California. Do you do we not seek to move forward with what we know we have to do because of the fiscal crisis, or do we get prepared for economic recovery, which is coming, and make sure that when it does come, that we are able to invest in a smart way, and certainly improving our economic development capacity by reducing this high school dropout rate and getting more young people prepared for higher education of the workforce is essential on so many levels.
I don't disagree with the intent of the bill. I'm just...
No, I understand,
yeah.
but that's why we start with a may.
Okay.
And before we turn it into a shall sometime, obviously districts need to be in a better financial situation.
Right.
And CalPADS needs to be
Other questions
ready.
or comments? Senator Price.
Yeah, I certainly want to just express appreciation for the measure. I think it is a smart way of using data that we are collecting. But back on this issue of funding, the 19.9 is the amount of the program as it's laid out currently. Is that the total cost?
In order to collect the data?
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, that's figures given here in terms of the grant that's being sought.
The federal grant that we are seeking is almost $20 million, correct? Yes. That would help pay for a lot of this, and we'd be seeking a small amount of the 19.9 in order to enable the collection of this data relating to chronic attendance.
Yes. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Senator Steinberg, thank you for the measure. This is a very common sense measure. On too many issues in California, we fly without a radar. We fly blind. We definitely know that attendance matters. I'm very interested. There's the big debate about whether it's excused or non-excused. There is a cumulative effect, and I'm pleased to see that when we finally get CalPADS, and that's a whole other issue, and yes, we will have a hearing on that issue, in addition to just race to the top in general, because our CalPADS system was specifically identified. It's important to keep those data points so that we are able to look at cumulative, but to also be able to disaggregate excused and, of course, non-excused absences. So any closing comments from you?
No, just thank you for the good discussion, and we'll work with the practical aspects of the bill, but we're going to push this aggressively. Thank you.
All right, Secretary, call the roll.
Romero?
Aye.
Romero, aye. Huff?
Aye.
Huff, aye. Alquist?
Aye.
Alquist, aye. Hancock?
Aye.
Hancock, aye. Liu?
Aye.
Liu, aye. Maldonado? Price?
Aye.
Price, aye. Simidian? Wyland?
You have sufficient votes to get it out.
Okay, 6 votes. We will leave it. We'll leave the roll open. Members, we do have somewhat of a companion bill by Senator Alquist. However, Senator Huff is requesting to proceed with his file item 5 since he has a witness who needs to leave. After we hear Senator Huff's bill, we'll return to Senator Alquist's bill. And Senator Huff, as you know, we had quite an extensive hearing on this issue some time back. We want to go ahead and just have an update so that we can move forward. We gave you time to try to see if we could have the proponents and opponents of this measure try to work out some type of a negotiated settlement. I don't know if that has happened, but let's hear from Senator Huff at this time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do have 2 witnesses, if I could, and I know we're going to keep discussion limited. I do appreciate you hearing again SB 1051. This is a very important bill to parents who have students with epilepsy. Per the request of the chair, I've met with the opposition in an effort to find common ground on this critical issue. Unfortunately, the opposition has made it clear they're not willing to support, under any circumstances, allowing a non-medical professional to administer Diastat to a seizing child. Nevertheless, I've adopted significant amendments which I believe address the issues raised by the opposition and more. These amendments will ensure that absolutely no one is coerced into administering Diastat, including a requirement that the school send out a system-wide notice to employees stating that this is strictly voluntary. Shield all trained volunteers volunteer school employees from liability. Require the school to contact the parent if Diastat has been administered. Require that a parent notify the school if Diastat has recently been administered outside of school hours. Require schools to have a detailed plan in place for assisting a child, including requiring a health care practitioner to provide a written statement outlining the details of the child's seizures and medication. Require training to include how long an employee should watch the child, how to know when 911 should be called, how to best protect the pupil's privacy in identifying seizures. Require school districts to keep records on all instances of Diastat administration to help the state review how the program is working. And then finally, a 5-year sunset on the date on the bill so that we can bring it back for reflective analysis. Literally, we took all the testimony and we incorporated that in here with the exception that it still requires volunteers. We're really trying to do what is necessary to protect the safety of the kids. Here's a few points just to remind you about. Diastat is an FDA-approved and created specifically for non-medical professionals. Schools have been allowing non-medical professionals to administer Diastat for at least 10 years. Just like CPR, which is mandated for a credential in California, which teachers are required to and trained to do, we're talking about a very time-sensitive emergency to which a child will only have a few minutes before something traumatic happens. A no vote on this bill will effectively put numerous volunteer staff in a position of literally having to stand by and do nothing while a child is having a medical emergency. One of the things that, we have heard in opposition, this is actually what the Diastat looks like, and it has a flexible tip. There was some concern about the health if it's inserted incorrectly. And in talking to the neurologists that are, take care of these kids, they say to their knowledge they've had no experience of a problem of any physical injury. A question was raised about what if it was inserted in the wrong place. And by the way, it absorbs just as well from the other place of entry as well. So those are non-issues. It's a little bit gross when you're talking about how you administer these things, but keep in mind, again, that these are kids who literally can suffer brain damage or even death if they're not receiving this care in a quick way. So I have with me today Michael Ches, Director of Pediatric Neurology at Sutter and a member of the Professional Advisory Board for Epilepsy Foundation of Northern California, to make a few brief comments.
Okay, we'll limit the testimony to 2 witnesses. Remember, we've had a rather exhaustive hearing already. I'm going to ask you to just summarize, be brief.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm Dr. Michael Ches. I'm a pediatric epileptologist and neurologist, 20 years experience. I've never had a single episode where Diastat administration has led to a complication or a legal matter, to my knowledge, in the neurology community nationally. The medicine is FDA approved for administration by parents and lay people. It was designed that way. It is the gold standard for acute emergency seizure care. Every research study comparing other drugs uses that as the gold standard. Epilepsy, when it occurs in patients requiring this, is sort of like having a fire extinguisher in your kitchen. You don't want to use it, but if you have to use it, it could save lives. The time it takes for a child to stop seizing for some patients is critical. For some patients, it could be a matter of minutes or seconds to stop a seizure before it gets so bad that it can lead to further complications. In addition, there's a great cost saving to the community. Patients who end up going to the hospital because they didn't get this administered can cost a large sum of medical expense as opposed to patients having the medicine administered and saving the parents or the state or the insurance massive expense of an emergency room visit and possible ICU care, which can add up quickly as a public expense. Overall, the medication is safe. The patients all have a seizure emergency plan in school districts. I fill these out every day. The doctors, like myself, specifically give the dosage that is safe and not to cause any complications. And administration is essentially faultless. There's only one way to give the medication. It is anatomically standard on all people to have the orifice needed to apply the device, and therefore it should not be confusing to anyone of basic intelligence how to give the medication. Most of our families work with aides with handicapped children. Those aides may be doing other bodily functions during the day as well in the school. This would not be a major disadvantage of those handicapped children who have that need in addition. This is a lifesaver for some people, and I can only say that we've had positive experience with Diastat as an additional armament against epileptic attacks since it's come out.
Second witness.
Hi, my name is Sam Stormont, and I have a daughter in the San Francisco Unified School District. And on, March 16th, she had a seizure at school, and her aid and inclusion specialist followed her written protocol. She was given her initial Diastat at the onset and a second Diastat 3 minutes later. At the same time, 911 was called and my wife was called. 5 minutes later, after the EMTs arrived, the seizure still had not stopped, so my wife instructed her aide to give her a third dosage of Diastat. Still seizing, after the EMT's protocol was complete, she was taken to the emergency room at UCSF. After a series of possibly 4 more medications, her seizure stopped at approximately 2:05, and that was about 50 minutes later. At no time did she stop breathing or go into respiratory distress. There was no coma. Her vitals were stable. Her ER doctors decided to intubate her, which is putting a tube into her lungs in order to help her breathe, because of a series of medications and the amount of medication received at the hospital, not at the school. This, again, is an emergency as a precaution. We have been administering Diastat to my daughter for 7 years now, since she was 6 months old. We've never had a problem with this medication, either in the application of it or in any of her breathing or any of this other type of stuff that these concerns are based on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, all others, simply identify yourself and say me too.
Mike Kilborn, representing the Orange County Department of Education, the Sonoma County Office of Education, and the Humboldt County Office of Education in support.
Terry Burns, representing Superintendent Vicki Barber from the El Dorado County Office of Education, SANDABS, the San Diego School Districts for Better Schools, and Saddleback Valley Unified School District, all in support, as well as speaking as an individual who would gladly receive this training. Thank you.
Bill Stack, I'm representing Epilepsy California, which is a coalition of over 450,000 individuals with epilepsy throughout the state.
Pamela Gibbs for the Los Angeles County Office of Education, in strong support. Thank you.
Sandy Silverstein, representing 23 school districts and the Riverside County Office of Education in Riverside County, in support.
Michael Holsizer on behalf of the Kern County Superintendent of Schools and the 47 school districts of our county, in support.
Madam Chair, Jeff Frost, representing the California Association of Suburban School Districts, in support.
Dennis Myers with the California Association of School Business Officials, in support.
Deborah Brown with the California School Boards Association, also in support.
Okay, witnesses in opposition. We'll take the 2 to testify against, and then the others just identify yourselves.
Good morning. My name is Nancy Spradling, and I'm the Executive Director for the California School Nurses Organization. CSNO is still very much opposed to this legislation. I spoke at length at the last hearing about school districts not understanding all of the medical and safety issues, but being supportive of anything that might save them money, no matter how short-sighted. I spoke about parents whose only focus is their child and their inability to focus on what could and has happened in other school districts. And yes, the San Francisco situation turned out the way it did, but I still want to point out it was an unlicensed person who administered the 3 doses. And a nurse, a licensed nurse, would have recognized that the recommended dosage, or recommended time between dosing is 4 to 12 hours. So a nurse would not have done that. The Department of Consumer Affairs, in a memorandum to the Board of Registered Nursing, stated on March 15th, I quote, "In summary, the administration of Diastat is the practice of nursing and a school district's use of unlicensed school personnel to fulfill its duty to provide medical services to students undergoing seizure is not permissible and is not exempt conduct under the Nursing Practice Act. In order to permit the conduct in question, a modification of the law would be required. Ultimately, such an effort would require a compelling public policy basis and adequate assurances that such a proposal would continue to protect the public health, safety, and welfare," end quote. CSNO does not believe that there is compelling policy to set aside this state law. We believe there is compelling policy to enforce current law and to enforce many other state and federal laws and Supreme Court decisions to require school districts to provide safe, appropriate, and lawful care. Many districts use the model of utilizing LVNs, RNs, or credentialed school nurses, and will continue to do so. We urge your no vote.
Thank you. Second witness. Good morning. I'm Dolores Duran Flores with the California School Employees Association. I spoke a couple of weeks ago, gave my testimony. Our testimony remains the same. We're still strongly opposed. We represent the classified school employees, who are the unlicensed school employees who are more than likely going to be asked to perform this medical function. We are opposed to it. They think that this is something that only licensed, appropriately licensed professionals should do, including LVNs. There's too many opportunities for something to go wrong. The kid is in the middle of a seizure when you're providing this injection in a very delicate part of the body. Also, we are concerned about liability. We know that the author took some immunity language, but our members make about $13,000 a year part-time, $25,000 a year full-time. They're going to have to put forth the defense. They're going to be named in a lawsuit. Who's going to pay for those lawyers? That's not clear. Also, training. We're in the middle of a budget crisis, as you all know. Training is the first thing to be cut. So we're really concerned about whether or not that is even going to occur. And there will be coercion. There will be retaliation. That's what happens in schools. I mean, that's the cold, hard reality. We're in the middle of, we've lost 10,000 employees ourselves because of the $18 billion in budget cuts. We're bracing for more. The school district, the school employer asks an employee to perform this function, they're going to feel like they have to do it, or they'll be next. So we thank you, and we urge you to vote no.
Okay, all others, identify yourselves.
Libby Sanchez on behalf of Laborers Local 777, also in opposition.
Dr. Sherry Coburn with the Northern Section California School Nurses Organization, and just want to add that EMTs and paramedics are not allowed to administer rectal diastat either.
Tony Triguero, California Teachers Association. We remain opposed to the bill. Thank you.
Katie Wall, Cupertino Union School District, Bay Coast Section, California School Nurse Organization. We are opposed.
Tricia Hunter, American Nurses Association, California. We're still strongly opposed.
Madam Chair, Member Stephanie Roberson on behalf of the California Nurses Association in opposition. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Brooks Allison on behalf of the United Nurses Association, Union of Healthcare Professionals, part of ASME, in opposition.
Dolores Sanchez, representing the California Federation of Teachers. We remain in strong opposition.
Harold Boyd, United Teachers, Los Angeles. We remain opposed.
Okay, questions or comments from the committee? Senator Liu?
It's interesting. This is a very difficult subject because apparently folks have been allowed to administer this drug to children for a period of 10 years without it ever being in front of us to be codified. And as far as what I read here. And I've had a parent in my school district, in my district, who talked to me because he has an epileptic child. The child carries a diastat in his backpack with him to school. And it's never been a problem. School districts apparently have been sending kids, special ed kids who have these needs, to schools that do, in fact, have nurses. And his point was that sometimes these schools may not offer the kind of education that this child is capable of receiving if you have a group of kids that are all special needs. And so for me, it brings up kind of a civil rights issue about what is appropriate. And yet I understand the nurses' situation that, you want somebody authorized, trained to administer the drug. But for the last 10 years, it hasn't been that way. So, it is a conundrum for me. And, I voted, we didn't take a vote last time, did we? So, I was in support of the nurses, and then after hearing this parent speak, and I notice some of my school districts have been in support of this bill. I'm just unsure about where I stand because, on one hand, again, we've been allowing it, and then on the other, it's now become a labor issue, and it's, anyway, that's just my comments. I'll figure it out by the time the vote comes up.
Other comments, questions? Senator Alquist?
For me, this is one of the toughest bills I've ever had to look at and eventually to vote on. Also, I come from the position of the Senate Health Chair, and should the bill get out of this committee, then I will be dealing with it, looking at different criteria, although some of the criteria happen to be the very same because we're discussing them in this committee. I'd like to begin by saying, Senator Huff, I know you're trying really hard, and I'm really cognizant of that, and I know you're working really hard. So I have a couple questions to help me clarify, because I don't know what I'm going to do. Does the Section 504 require a medical personnel to administer the Diastat currently?
You have the answer to that? Could you repeat your question one more time?
Yes. We have a Section 504 that supposedly was dealing with this issue where if a child had epilepsy, the parent would make this known to the school district, and there is a Section 504 that allows some kind of process where the child will be taken care of when he or she has epilepsy.
Right. Well, with children...
So my question is, currently, and I'd like also an administrator to also answer the question, 100% of the time when a child has epilepsy and the parent wants to make use of Section 504, first of all, is that occurring? And second, is it a trained medical person who does administer the Diastat? And then I have other questions.
We're actually willing to put that in the IEP, the 504. That's not an issue from our perspective, but there are already situations, and there have been, where they have somebody trained that qualifies as not a nurse on campus.
Well,
it's not all
if you could think about it, because as a senator, it always bothers me if I as an author am willing to change something and then a person votes no. It really bothers me to see that, and I don't know what I'm going to do yet. But I would strongly suggest that you look at that because it ought to be in the IEP.
Okay, appreciate that.
One thought. So
may I respond to that?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm Dr. Sherry Coburn, and I am.
And I also want a school administrator to respond.
Yes, I am a director of comprehensive health programs at the San Joaquin County Office of Ed, and have been a school nurse. Section 504 is part of the free and appropriate education. There was a case, Cedar Grand Rapids versus Garrett in 1999, where the Supreme Court stated that districts must provide health services for students who have those identified needs, just like we would provide physical therapy or speech therapy services under the FAPE, it's called. School districts must, in fact, provide health services for students who need that.
Okay.
It is a federal law.
And my question is, how is that working?
How is that?
How is that working, and do you have data that shows how that is working throughout the state of California for all of the students?
There is no data collection system throughout the state, but I can say for my own county, we do use a cadre of licensed vocational nurses, registered nurses, and credentialed school nurses to provide Diastat administration to students.
Well, the issue is that there is not a school nurse at every school site in California. If there were, and I wish there were, we wouldn't be dealing with the issue today.
Correct.
But financially, we cannot today have a school nurse at every school site. So how does that, I'm asking how it really works. What is the procedure? how quickly, when there's not a school nurse at the school site, what do you do and how long does it take?
Could I answer that question, please? My name is Katie Wall.
From
and I'm a
Cupertino
school
Union
nurse
School
with-
District, where I was on the school board, yes.
Cupertino, yes. In our county, Santa Clara County, we are not training, and nor have we trained in the past 10 years any unlicensed personnel to give Diastat. We have the same number of kids as you have across California with seizures requiring Diastat. We have been able in our county to put together a response so that if we have children who require Diastat, that the school knows using either the 504 model or the IEP model. It depends on how educationally the child is affected.
Well, we know the
it's a broad range.
Cupertino Union School District does a great job on IEPs.
And 504s.
And 504s.
We have a response model that says that if this particular child, I have two, if they have a seizure, the office is notified, the parent is notified, 911 is called, and the nurses on call have cell phones, or personal cell phones that are called, and the office stops calling when they have two nurses who respond to their cell phones that they will be there. And this is, we have a tiered model that has worked for us.
Yeah, I won't belabor the point, but the point is that there's always a misalignment of the stars once in a great while, and there will be a case when a nurse is not available,
That's right.
No one else shows up, and there the child is having a seizure.
Is called at the same time.
Right, and sometimes 911 does not respond in a timely fashion, so I think Senator Huff is trying to address this. I don't have an answer. I'm just trying to look at the question.
I want to talk what we do in San Joaquin County.
Let me go ahead and let me just go ahead and have the author the member ask the question, and let's continue from there.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, one other point, and I think Senator Liu made a really good point, and that is it sounds like for the last 10 years, trained medical personnel have not always been doing this because it's not been possible. And so the question really becomes, who administers the Diastat when it can become a matter of life and death? And I'll just leave it there. I don't know what I'm going to do, but certainly, Senator Huff, to consider putting this requirement in the IEP, I think is a good place to start, and be sure it's, yes. Thank you.
Senator Price.
Yes, thank you. I, like my colleagues, have been sort of going back and forth on this. I think good points have been made on both sides. I certainly am sensitive to the medical and safety issues that have been raised by those who are concerned, but also the efforts by the author to take into consideration the variety of other issues that have been incorporated into the bill. And I've also been persuaded by parents, quite frankly, who I've talked to, who have been grateful that the response capability was possible and how they've been individually impacted by it. But just a question just on, I guess, kind of the practical applications again. And I guess you talked about a couple of models, one where there's a, I guess, a response team of folks designated. I guess the other is that you provide ongoing training so everyone is capable. What's envisioned with the passage of this? How would you see the services being rolled out?
I see it being rolled out that there would be a request for volunteers. There's no personal contact requesting. It's an electronic, looking for volunteers. So if you have volunteers, they're trained, and those would most likely be the teachers or whomever that's around that child, the closest to them. That's the ideal. And then they will have been trained by either a doctor or a nurse or whoever's available there to be able to do it. Because this, frankly, even if we had a nurse in every school, we would still want this because nurses are not always right around the child, and this is time critical. So even what Senator Alquist has suggested as far as it being part of the IEP, that works for us. It's just not in the bill right now. But I see that really what happens is you have more people available to take care of an emergency, and they will have been trained to do so.
Thank you.
Senator Hancock.
Yeah, like others, I find this a difficult issue. But I have to say that I cannot vote for this bill. I do like the idea of putting required drugs for any condition that a student may have into the IEP. It forces some of the contradictions that we have, that we don't fully fund special education, among other things. But there are two reasons I can't take this step today. One is the slippery slope in time of economic crisis. This year, Diastat, next year, something else. Next year, other professional roles in school can be replaced by volunteers, and our eroding public school system that we built with such pain to excellence decades ago continues to run down. I think we need a school nurse in every school. These are critically important. As a person who's worked in my district to start federally funded health clinics in our public schools, which we can have, and we can get a large part of the money from the federal government. These are gateways not only to administering drugs like Diastat to students who need them, but to problems with children being ready to learn. Hearing problems, sight problems, mental health issues, possible neglect issues. As the nurses say, they come in with a hangnail and then they tell you what's happening. And we need school nurses. Now, we can't afford them, has been said. I want to just point out, we are still the 8th largest economy in the world. We have choices. We are not under federal mandate not to have school nurses. We are not a developing country caught in the clutches of the World Bank trying to have austerity provisions forced on us by an outside group. We are a body of legislators who write a budget and who set priorities. And I do feel that in this case, the health of our students should be a priority, and that we need to go back to many things, but that school nurses and a health professional in our schools is of great importance. So I cannot support this, and I do understand the trade-offs.
Okay, this is a difficult bill. I want to thank Senator Huff for bringing the bill forward. And let me just give a couple of statistics. Today in California, school-age children, there are over 62,000 children with epilepsy in our school system today. In terms of looking at children who will have a status seizure at any point, it's estimated 10 to 25%. I do lament as well the fiscal situation. This is it's a health issue. It is a labor issue. It is a priority issue. It's a simple compassion issue as well. When we last heard the bill, we had put the bill over because I think there were serious issues. And the issue won't be wait for next year. We've got diabetes in the other house. So it's not about waiting next year. Addressing the health needs in dwindling resources is a critical issue before us today. Let me just say a couple of things which I'm struck by. We did put the bill over. There had been actually, I thought, a very interesting suggestion. Mr. Harold Boyd from UTLA had said, why not limit it? Because I was very concerned about the forced coercion, the willy-nilly giving it to any and all staff. I didn't think that was appropriate. I did believe that perhaps there could be a medium where the adults come together to put the interests of the children first. The negotiations ended up in a screaming match, I was told. So we're back to where we are today. A couple of things, though, I'm struck by. A decade has elapsed, and this has occurred. Okay, I don't know if somebody suddenly read the Ed Code, or I don't know what happened, but we're in court, and perhaps the courts will decide for us, as the courts so often do when the legislature, I don't want to say cannot act, but doesn't know how to act. I understand that the case, it is stayed at this point. And so I'd like to just get a quick update. Just when are we anticipating a ruling? Can somebody just give me that? We don't know. Okay, but we're on hold. In the meantime, the California Department of Education is sending out memos saying, just do it. On the other hand, because there is the confusion and the lack of clarity, there are increasingly school districts and others saying, don't do it. So to a large extent, the adults are in a state of confusion. And you will clarify that confusion by giving us an update on the status of the court case, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I'm Tricia Hunter, American Nurses Association, California. It is our lawsuit, and we are understanding that it will be decided in June.
Okay, so in June.
Yeah.
In June. And then again, depending upon what happens there, may go through an appeal process. So that's where we are. Senator Huff, I had urged that we take a look at actually what UTLA had suggested, make it very, very limited, put a sunset, report back, go with some of the other procedures. I understand you choose not to accept those amendments. In its present form, the way it is written, I'm not supportive of it the way that you have it written at this time. I still think there's opportunity, though, to go back, and I'll accommodate it. Hopefully it won't be a shouting match this time again. There still is time. We can wait for June. We can wait till after June, but we've got 62,520 children in California public schools, grades K through 12, and their parents. So I leave it up to you at this point. It is your call. The issue is not going to go away. And Senator Huff, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wish we had an opportunity. We talked about this a lot last time. We've talked about it actually more than we anticipated this time. I wish all the members in the panel could sit down over coffee and talk to a parent that's lived with a child with epilepsy. They could sit down and talk with a doctor who works with epileptic patients, who have been in charge of making sure that they're healthy as they try to get an education. We've raised a lot of good questions today. Let me try to boil this back down to what it is we're really focusing on. In fact, I have this particular parent here because there were some of those who opposed this bill that were saying there was a recent illustration in San Francisco area where a child had a respiratory problem when Diastat was administered. Well, the parents became very upset at that because they were in constant contact with the teacher or whoever's doing the administration on that. And in fact, if you want to know whether this is dangerous, a nurse said that, you know the protocol is every 3 or 4 hours of administration. I'm sure the doctor could speak more about this, but the fact is there were 3 doses given in rapid succession, and there were no health problems. It's safe. It was designed for non-medical personnel to administer. And I don't know how we can underscore that any other than we have 0 illustrations of damage to the delicate parts where this is administered. We have 0 illustrations of anything going wrong of 10 years, regardless of who was administering this. A comment was made that paramedics don't administer it this way. No, they can do by injection and IV. This is a slower process, but it's better than dialing 911 and waiting for medical personnel to come, because that happens quickly. The person that was reacting in this parent's situation with the child, and you probably saw the picture come around, cute little gal. There's 62,000 others like that around. But when there was a situation, the teacher was responding and talking to someone else that understood. I mean, these parents live with it all the time. They deal with it. They've administered this. And again, I wish we had time to develop this a little bit more thoroughly in this committee, but we don't. So I think the most important thing I can say is I wish we had a school nurse everywhere. I wish we had 2. The reality is we don't. And this part of the problem of limiting it to just the site administrator is it also limits the number. And we want more people trained. We're not going to coerce them. I told you before, I believe that people that go into teaching and nursing, frankly, are caring people. That's why they get into jobs where they can help people. The most paralyzing thing you can do to somebody is have them in a situation where they're not equipped to take care of an emergency as traumatic as somebody in a grand mal seizure or whatever level of seizure they're having. We were asking the doctor earlier, what kind of seizure, triggers this? How do you identify the seizure? And he says, when they start shaking. If you got a kid with an epileptic history, and we know who they are because they've got this medication pre-positioned there, ready to administer, you got trained people, they start shaking, you administer it. But they'll do a lot more training on that and make sure that there's no questions about that at all. I understand that there's opposition to this. It's focusing more on labor. I'm trying to focus on the kids' safety. In some situations, in fact, Senator Lieu brought up about how the kids are often put where there is a nurse, whether or not the curriculum is tailored to what they need or not. Well, that's a problem. If we want to help kids get the education they need, we want to put them where the teachers are that will meet their needs. And so we arbitrarily put them off somewhere else where there's a nurse in place when we could just as easily been used this FDA approved for non-medical personnel. We could have a child in a situation like that and be getting a higher quality education. In some cases, schools are busing these kids 40 minutes away. So then you have that disruption, and it's not necessarily the best fit for the curriculum. This is a huge problem, but it has not had any demonstrated problems in an application for over 10 years. And by the way, we allow non-nurses to administer glucagon, a drug that must be mixed, then measured, and then injected with a needle in the child's arm or buttock. This is pre-measured. You've seen the flexible tip. You don't need to do an injection. You don't need all that specialized training, but we still require training in this bill. But we will take away that liability. I know that was brought up. We have tried to meet every stated concern possible. And yes, it did get a little shouting match at the end. But I want you to think of the kids right now. This is not against labor. It's not against having a nurse. It's in addition to. And by the way, if the court case came down either way, we would still want this bill. Because if they say one way, then we have this provision. If they say it's legal, then this enhances it. So either way, we'd want to have that. I just ask you to consider the 62,000 plus children. I ask you to think about these parents that are struggling to have their kids educated just like everybody else is. And this is not the final stop. It's dual referred. It will go to Senator Alquist's committee should you pass it out today, and we can address some more of these issues at that point. But on an education basis, for their best education and for their health in that process, I would ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Senator Alquist.
I just wanted to say that my vote today will not be indicative necessarily of should the bill get out and be referred to Health Committee of what I will require and vote for at that point in time.
Senator Lieu?
I guess I would ditto what Senator Alquist has just said. I think I will probably vote for the bill today just so we can have more conversation about it in health and see what happens on the floor.
And Senator Huff, again, too, I would indicate that, it is my hope that we can still resolve a compromise on this issue. I think there are incremental steps, perhaps, that one can take, and that was the spirit, sort of a spirit of compromise that I was hoping for to try to bring forth, because I think the question of, I do believe in training, people being, not even volunteers, just people being ready to be able to step forward in order to give assistance. My hope would be to see a little bit more of the on-site administrator. We had put a sunset on it. That's what I had asked for as well, to have that on-site administrator, so you eliminate all the classified as well, not have the coercion, et cetera, but to look at the on-site administrator staying with the the student for perhaps up to 4 hours. I think there is a way to do this. Once again, that if there are, and it does go to a second policy committee for continued deliberation. Once again, if the bill falls short, there is reconsideration that might be taken a look at. And I know it is double referred, so there is a time urgency. But I'm just going to indicate that at a certain point, we continue to defer to the courts. Having said that, Secretary, call the roll.
We need a motion.
Oh, is there a motion on the bill?
I move the bill.
Okay, the bill has been moved.
Romero? Huff?
Aye.
Huff, aye. Alquist?
Aye.
Alquist, aye. Hancock?
No.
Hancock, no. Lou?
Aye.
Lou, aye. Maldonado? Price?
Aye.
Price, aye. Semidian? Wyland?
We don't have sufficient votes right now.
Okay, the bill is on call. 4 votes, and we will wait until members return to the committee.
Thank you, Madam
All
Chair
right.
and members.
Thank you, all the witnesses. I know you've been here on a couple of occasions. Who knows? You may be back again. But it is a difficult issue. I know it's an intense issue for everybody, and I want to express my appreciation for the points of view expressed by all. Thank you. Now, members, we're going to go to Senator Alquist. Remember, she had the companion bill with Senator Steinberg. Not quite a companion bill, but it's very similar. So we accommodated Senator Huff because of his witnesses that needed to leave. But let's go back now to absences.
Thank you.
Senator Alquist.
Thank you.
And this is file item 8.
I'll give an abbreviated version, as Senator Steinberg did such a great job talking about truancy and pupil attendance. But just to give just a few facts, in 2008-9, over 1.5 million California students were truant, 40% in our elementary schools. Chronic elementary truancy contributes to juvenile truancy and delinquency, high school dropout rates, increased rates of poverty, and incarceration among adults. As a former teacher and school counselor, I'm aware of many cases where school districts were not even aware of when students did not show up and when they dropped out, and that is unacceptable. The Ed Code today does not establish the definition of more serious episodes of truancy. The failure to distinguish between levels, categories of children who have missed 5 days versus children who have missed 50 days. And there's a huge difference. Without a uniform definition of chronic truancy that recognizes the tipping point, and we know that tipping point means at which point a child becomes very vulnerable and is likely to drop out and have other horrendous problems in society. So school districts are not able to respond when they don't understand what that tipping point is. This bill would establish chronic truancy having 10% or more unexcused days of a school year. That is what it does. Senator Steinberg has spoken to the research. 10% is the tipping point. Children who miss less than 10% can recover, can become resilient. Those who miss 10% and more do fall through the cracks. We need to know that information, so in a comprehensive fashion, with the parent, with the school district, with the child, we can address this issue. I have witnesses. I would like to thank San Francisco District Attorney Kamala Harris for her leadership on this issue. Also, many thanks to Pamela Gibbs, Director of Governmental Relations for the Los Angeles County Office of Education. Addressing this issue in a coordinated fashion will help our students. It's a very important bill, a small bill, but a very important bill, and I ask for your support.
Welcome. So good to see you.
Good morning. Thank you, Senator. I am Kamala Harris. I'm the District Attorney of San Francisco, here in support of Senate Bill 1148, and I want to thank Senator Ahlquist for her longstanding support of these issues. Several years ago in San Francisco, we had a rash of homicides. It was one of the highest we'd experienced in a while, and it was an issue of concern for all of us in city leadership. So I asked a member of my staff to do an assessment and share with me who are our homicide victims, in particular who are under the age of 25 when they were killed. The data came back, and it included the fact that 94% of them are high school dropouts. So then I went over to the school district, and I asked our superintendent of schools at the time to tell me what's going on here. And she at the time shared with me that of the few number of children we have in our public school system, 5,500 had been designated as habitually and chronically truant. And of the 5,500, 2,400 were elementary school students, which of course is a shocking statistic. That prompted me to create an initiative in my office that is a truancy initiative, where essentially I decided I was going to start prosecuting parents for truancy, but with the goal not of prosecuting the parents, but hopefully through the carrot and stick of law enforcement, encouraging and creating incentives for children to increase attendance. And during the course of this initiative then, which has been over the last over 2 years, what we have found is hundreds of children who are elementary school children, who are chronically and habitually truant, but the code currently defines that as missing 5 days in a school year. That's what the education code now says, 5 unexcused absences in a school year. And senators, what we found were situations where children as young as 6, 7 years old were missing 60, 70, 80 days of a 180-day school year. And I would suggest that there is a huge and very significant distinction between 5 unexcused absences and what we have been experiencing as a state as it relates to this chronic issue. And for that reason, we believe very strongly that, as Senator Steinberg and Hetty Chang, his witness, testified earlier, this issue of the 10% is in fact a tipping point and should be, as we have a scale for any other national emergency, the different zones by which we will respond differently. This should be the one that sends off all the alarms. And we need to create a definition for that code red in our education code, which would be by establishing, in particular, that if a child misses and has 10% of the entire school year absent, unexcused absent, that is something that is chronic and must require a different type of approach and response by our school systems and by us as a state. And I will also share what I'm sure you all know is a study that was disclosed last year by the University of California, Santa Barbara, which showed that when you look at the cost to California on an annual basis of truancy, we are paying up to $1.1 billion a year for the direct costs associated with those children who are truant and then will be involved in juvenile crime. And when you look at the associated costs, which relate beyond the criminal justice system to the public health cost and social services systems cost, we are looking at approximately a cost per year to California of $46 billion, and that's billion with a B. So when we talk about what is necessary, I think this is just the right thing to do from a moral perspective, certainly from a perspective of what's important to raise healthy children and a community, but also in terms of the fiscal impact to our state of this issue. So I thank you all for your leadership, and Senator Ahlquist in particular. Thank you.
And let me just thank you for your strong leadership on this issue.
Thank you.
Next witness.
Good morning. Pamela Gibbs, representing the Los Angeles County Office of Education. Thank you for asking for our testimony today. Senator Ahlquist, thank you for your leadership on this issue as well. I won't belabor many of the points that were already made, but I will say, as the County Office of Education of the largest county in the state, we work with 80 school districts on a very diligent matter, working with issues such as our student support services and child welfare attendance divisions, working on attendance issues. So they're very familiar with all of the things that have been stated here today. We think that the shorter time frame in existing law is too short to establish a pattern. We think that the 10% rule will help us in an effort to establish a pattern and see where you've got 50 or 100 attendance issues or tardies or truancies as opposed to 3 or 5 days. So we think this bill moves in the right direction. We also know that there's a multi-level approach. People are dealing with the student school attendance review boards. There's other interventions that can happen earlier, but we recognize that the 10% rule would provide us a better opportunity, and that would eventually be beneficial to the students. So we urge your aye vote on this bill. Thank you.
Other witnesses, simply identify yourselves.
Brad Strong with Children Now in support.
Adonai Mack with the Association of California School Administrators. We're also in support.
Jill Howell with the State Public Affairs Committee, Junior Leagues of California in support. Jeff Freitas with the California Federation of Teachers in support. Thank you.
Any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Questions from the committee? Senator Hancock?
Yeah, I support this bill completely. I think it's something that we need to do. At the high school and middle school level, when many young people do become dropouts, oftentimes you'll see students cutting at the end of the day or cutting particular classes. And you might want to consider, Senator Alquist, as the bill moves forward, finding some ways of identifying that kind of truancy so that schools know about it and can take action on it. It wouldn't be missing an entire school day, but it's more flexible when you get to those levels of education.
Thank you, Senator Hancock.
And I would move the bill, Senator Romero.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to be added as a co-author as well. Senator Liu?
Just a clarification here, because Senator Alquist, I too will support the bill, but you identified chronically truant. Senator Steinberg, who was here a few minutes ago, talked about chronically absent, which included both excused and unexcused. If both of the bills were to move forward and be signed, is there a need to clarify? Are we counting everybody? How are we doing this?
Yeah, the bills do not contradict each other. If there is something, they're similar, they're actually complementary. One does not undermine the other, and there actually are means to go ahead and move both out.
Okay.
And if I may, to that very point, one of the issues is that there is an accepted standard definition of habitual truancy, and that's 5 or more unexcused absences. But there is no standard definition of chronic truancy. So different school districts are actually applying a different standard. So this bill actually, and I think we could consider the Steinberg bill as a companion bill, will clear up a lot of the ambiguity, and in that way, I think, provide clarity and direction for the school districts.
All right. Secretary, call the roll.
Romero?
Aye.
Romero, aye. Huff?
Aye.
Huff, aye. Alquist?
Aye.
Alquist, aye. Hancock? Aye. Hancock, aye. Liu? Aye. Liu, aye. Maldonado? Price?
Aye.
Price, aye. Semidian? Wyland?
We have sufficient votes to get it out.
The bill has sufficient votes. We'll keep the roll open.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, members, we have a special order of business at 11 o'clock. In which we're going to hear 4 bills. I do see Senator Desaulniers sitting here. Okay, we'll go ahead and we'll have you present your bill. And if you can be cognizant of our time frame, please. Please step forward. Excuse me, Senator Price?
You too.
Hi, how are you? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hopefully we can get this done so that you can get on with your 11 o'clock agenda. I appreciate you taking the time, and I want to thank you and your staff for working with our staff and our sponsors. SB 1157 builds on the good work that the state of California has done to protect students in their school environment from toxic substances and pesticides in particular. For almost 10 years, we have had a voluntary program, which I think you're all aware of. 70% of the school districts actually have put a employee through an integrated pest management program done by the Department of Pesticide Regulation. Only 40% of the districts have actually implemented implemented this voluntary program. So we, the sponsors and myself, believe it's time to build on this and actually require them to adopt an integrated pest management program and to seek alternatives to less toxic pesticides whenever possible. The bill also provides for an off-ramp. Principal can decide in a pest emergency to use the more toxic material, but we believe that this sets us on a path to protect the public health, and particularly young people, as we all know, are most susceptible to the health impacts of these kind of products. In addition, it attempts to recover the costs. There'll be no general fund costs by charging a fee and letting the Department of Pest regulation to adopt a fee on the most toxic substances and the manufacturers. We're eager to continue to work with the manufacturers to develop a protocol that they feel comfortable with. They have told me that they believe many of the real issues are when school employees, non-licensed people use product that they're unaware of the health impact. So we think, again, this builds on the good work we've done. We think it's important that we require it. We think it will take a relatively easy implementation process, and we believe we can continue to work with the opponents to make sure that the fees are not unreasonable. With me today to testify, first is Susan Junfish, who brought us this idea and is an ardent and very well versed on the technicalities. She's the director of the Parents for a Safer Environment. And we also have Richard Craig Tierlink, a 12-year-old 7th grade student from San Francisco, who has spent the last few hours watching Democracy in Action in front of your committee. And I'll turn it over to Susan.
Senator DeSaulnier, there were some suggested staff amendments. Can you please address these? And if you are to adopt them, we understand they would not be adopted today. They would be taken in the next committee, and it would be, of course, the bill would be sent to the Rules Committee.
We're happy to continue those discussions. And again, we appreciate the good work we've been able to do with your committee consultants.
All right. Witnesses in support.
Honorable Chair Romero and members of the Education Committee. My name is Susan Junfish. My education is a Bachelor's of Science and a Master's of Public Health from UC Berkeley. I've been in private industry as a pharmaceutical researcher and also worked for Cal EPA for 7 years as well. This morning, I'm happy to say that we have over a dozen organizations endorsing this bill, including the Contra Costa County Board of Supervisors unanimously endorsed it yesterday morning. We'd like to also mention that one of the things that we'd like you to consider is that that our organization receives a request from a parent from a school district in the Bay Area about once every 2 months, and they're
along very quickly, be very succinct.
Sure.
It is 11 o'clock, almost 11, and we still have a very lengthy agenda.
Okay.
Otherwise, we will stop the bill and move over into our special order of business.
Okay. So does that mean how much time should I take?
Like 30 seconds.
Oh, 30 seconds.
And we want to save time for Richard.
So basically, biomonitoring studies show that the children, the school-age children, have the highest levels of pesticide in their body than any other age category. Get biomonitoring studies. So we're finding these pesticides commonly used in schools in the children's bodies. Diseases of children, such as learning disabilities, central nervous system damaging diseases, asthma, all these cancers such as leukemia and non-Hodgkin lymphoma, these cancers that are linked to pesticide exposure, they're all on the increase among our children. So with those items, trying to wind this up in 30 seconds, I urge you to please vote for Senate Bill 1157. We have a tremendous amount of evidence from the scientific community.
So you support the bill?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, Richard.
Do I have 3 minutes or 30 seconds?
You will have 3 minutes, absolutely.
Discrimination.
It's okay.
Go ahead, Richard.
I concede. Yeah, my name's Richard Tierlink, and I'm a 12-year-old 7th grader from San Francisco. And I'm here because I believe this bill will help schools have better safety regulations, which will keep the students safe and their staff safe as well. I'm talking on this subject because it is a very important matter to discuss. It is important because according to the State Department of Pesticide Regulation, there's been about 500 reported pesticide exposure incidents in 2007 caused by non-disinfectant pesticides. Today I will be focusing on 3 points: safety, consequences, and the effects on the family and friends of a person who has been hurt by pesticide exposure. Safety is very important, and without it, many more people would get hurt or die from events in California. High-risk pesticides have caused people to develop symptoms that have made their lives more difficult. I believe that, especially at schools, there should be some restrictions around these pesticides. These symptoms may not show early on, but would develop later on in life and cause more struggling or suffering. School children depend on their parents and school staff to keep them safe and to know if things are dangerous. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention found an average of 7 pesticides in each child. School-aged children sometimes had double the amount of certain pesticide than adults in their body. Also, CDC found higher levels of certain pesticides than adults in their highest level of certain pesticides in boys that are commonly used in schools, such as insecticides. Experts say that maybe boys play more on the ground where pesticides are sprayed. Pesticide symptoms impact the person who gets them, their family, and their friends. Some children diseases that may have been caused by pesticide have doubled over the last 30 to 20 years, like asthma. Some might change a person's life completely, others may not, but we know all of them will have a bad impact. No matter what symptom a child might get, it will use some or lots of a family's resources to fix it, if they can. A person that has one of their kids or family member die or get seriously hurt from an event in life suffer from the loss. Many people have come into my school to talk about a loved one that has died in the war in Iraq or from cancer. Just talking about it is hard for them. Imagine if a family member of yours was ill. Please help reduce the number of suffering children and families and vote for this bill.
Thank you, Richard. What grade are you in?
7th.
7th grade. Good for you. Thank you. Other witnesses, those 3 minutes were invaluable, so you can just simply, you can't beat that, just me too.
Tony Tadero, California Teachers Association in support.
Joshua Golka, California School Employees Association in support.
Others in support of the bill?
Thank you.
In opposition? Please step forward.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members, my name is Billy Gaither. I represent the Pest Control Operators of California. We oppose this bill. We would respectfully have the author consider perhaps an amendment to take the all-common practice of applying these chemicals in schools by unlicensed personnel such as janitors and other maintenance people and put it in the hands of the trained and licensed professionals in this state. Also, we think it's not good to let a principal determine what types of chemicals may be used in the school. This is a decision that should be left to the professionals who know these chemicals and are trained how to use them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next witness.
My name is Darrell Innes. I'm the immediate past president of Pest Control Operators of California and the director of government affairs for Terminix International, a large pest control firm. I've been licensed to do pest control in this state for 42 years. And I concur with what Billy said. I think it's probably erroneous to have a school principal who unfortunately probably doesn't, although maybe well-intentioned, does not have the training or background to decide when pesticides should be used. That should be up to a professional. The current regulation was passed, the Healthy Schools Act in 2000 by Kevin Shelley. We helped sponsor that, PCOC did, and we feel that it works well. It requires posting, it requires notification, and when used properly, I think it works very well. Matter of fact, that regulation, or excuse me, that legislation is one of the models that other states use to copy sometimes or draw from when they draw up their own Schools Act. We have met with the staff of the senator, and we look forward to continuing the dialogue should this go forward. But I'm speaking in opposition.
Thank you. Other witnesses in opposition?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Louis Brown on behalf of the Western Plant Health Association, concur with the comments. We have concerns with the fee as well. We're working with the senator's office, but for today, I need to ask for a no vote in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in opposition? Senator, questions from the committee? Senator DeSaulnier, you may close.
Well, we're happy to continue to work with the opponents. As I said in my opening comments, we believe we can reach a solution, so I would ask for your aye vote. Let us continue to do the good work we have. Thank you for indulging Richard. It's the most articulate comments we've heard from somebody in San Francisco. Never mind. Did the district attorney leave? I forgot.
Let's even make it bigger, perhaps the most articulate comments we have heard all day.
Right.
Is there a motion on the bill? Remember, this bill would go to the Rules Committee.
So moved.
Moved by Senator Hancock. Call the roll.
Romero?
Aye.
Romero, aye. Huff? No. Huff, no. Alquist? Hancock? Aye. Hancock, aye. Lou? Aye. Lou, aye. Maldonado? Price? Price, aye. Semidian? Wyland? You don't have sufficient votes.
Tell me the number.
Okay, it's 4-1.
The bill has 4 votes. We'll keep the roll open.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members. Thank you for the time.
All right, members, it is a little bit past 11 o'clock, and we have 4 items for special order. Let's begin, and these are authors Senator Denham, Senator Flores, and Senator Liu. There's a great deal of interest in looking at student fees and student fee policies. I think it's a very important issue at this time. Let's begin with Senator Denham. He has file items 1 and 24. Senator Denham. Senator Denham.
These are hearing no vote. We're doing just hearing no votes on these.
It's going to be, yeah, it's going to be. And let me just again before the presentations begin, the intention right now is we are not going to take votes on these 4 bills. There are 4 bills, and we are not sending out 4 bills, 3 bills, probably not even 2 bills on this issue. The issue is to figure there's a great deal of interest, bipartisan interest in this issue, very important. What we want to do is to hear the issues. I think it's important for the members as you step forward to talk about particular parts of your bills that perhaps may either be in contradiction to or complement or be unique to the other package. It's a package and we can work together. The goal would be then is to, after we recess, the committee today to go back, have the authors meet. Hopefully there will be no screaming matches at that meeting as well. But to try to figure out, can we come together to pass a solid bill that addresses the issues and concerns of the membership of this committee? That is the goal. And Senator Denham, let's begin with you.
Well, thank you. Let me first start by saying I think that there is an opportunity here to come together in a bipartisan fashion, and I'm hopeful that as we move forward, we're looking at combining all these bills in a nonpartisan focus. I've introduced my bill early on, and certainly appreciate Senator Flores in adding his legislation that would do very similar things, and I'm hopeful we can come to a resolution that we all agree on. But on my bill specifically, SCA 26 requires the UC and CSU system to provide a 180-day waiting period between when a governing board approves a tuition or fee increase and when students have to pay the increased fees. It will also limit fee increases to no more than 10% per year. Again, Senator Flores has a lower percentage, which I'm certainly in favor of as well, but wanted to make sure that this is something that all can agree on. I just think it's outrageous that the Regents recently hiked student fees by 32% mid-year, and UCs are threatening to further reduce enrollment by 2,300 students if they do not receive over $913 million this year in taxpayer money. Instead, UCs should be looking at how to cut waste like obscene administrative salaries, benefits, and severance packages, and questionable properties. One of the UC system's questionable properties that we've continued to talk about is the Tahiti Island property, which is subsidized by taxpayer dollars and student tuition. Several UC administrators have received expensive secret pay bonuses and other perks, such as a $30,000 dog run in Santa Cruz. The UC president makes in excess of $800,000 a year in salary and benefits, Why should anyone being paid with public funds earn more than the President of the United States? So certainly there is a number of areas that we can rein in within our UC and CSU system, but most importantly, we should not be done at the expense of our students and faculty throughout the entire system. So again, before witnesses, I just want to reaffirm that SCA 26 will provide a 180-day waiting period as well as a cap on fees of no more than 10% per year.
Okay, and that's file item 24. That's actually the SCA that you
SCA 26, yes.
presented. Any questions on this particular measure? What about file item 1, your bill? Do you want to go ahead and talk about what you have in there and how it compares and differs from SCA 26 and the others?
Absolutely. SB 917 would require CSU and request the UC to provide a 180-day waiting period between when the governing board approves a tuition or fee increase and when students have to pay the hike, and that also would limit increases to 10% per year.
All right, any questions or comments from the committee members? Okay, let's hold on this then. Thank you very much, Senator Denham, for presenting on your items. Senator Liu, would you care to present on file item 13, SB 1199? And Senator Liu, maybe for each subsequent author, hopefully if you've been able to hear what the previous author has indicated, perhaps you can build on comparisons and contrasts with your bill and the others. And then I am going to direct committee staff to draw up a grid that will compare and contrast issues for all of the members of the committee.
That's a great idea. Yeah, thank you very much. Madam Chair, members, we all know that higher education is becoming financially out of reach for many students and their families. And recent abrupt fee increases are making it difficult for students currently in college to remain enrolled. At the same time, California is facing a projected shortfall in the number of college-educated workers we need to compete in the international marketplace. So increases in college fees may be inevitable, but they should at least be predictable so students and families can plan ahead to meet college cost. SB 1199 establishes a state resident student UC and CSU fee policy and requires that any changes in fees be gradual, moderate, and predictable. This bill also reasserts California's commitment in providing access to affordable public higher education and financial aid to those in need. Under SB 1199, UC Regents and the CSU trustees would each develop a rational and transparent methodology for adjusting mandatory system-wide resident student fees. The methodologies would be developed in consultation with student representatives and discussed and acted upon in open meetings. The fee would be adjusted annually in a similar manner at least 7 months before they take effect. The bill provides that student fees should not exceed a set proportion of the overall cost of instruction and not increase more than a set percent in any academic year. After those levels are attained, annual adjustments would be keyed to the Consumer Price Index. The current version of the bill leaves the proportions blank to motivate stakeholders to weigh in. Accordingly, I am asking the committee to recognize this bill as a work in progress and allow it to move forward in the process. So I do agree with you, Senator Romero. Senator Denham has indicated there are certain benchmark percentages and benchmarks that he wants to attain in his bill. My bill is more open and it does not set amounts, but that I think that we can, and when Senator Flores gets here, I think you will hear that his bill too includes the community college system and the CSUs and the UC. So I think the grid will become very apparent about what needs to move forward, and I think that indeed that something can be worked out among the bills that are being heard today.
Thank you. Questions or comments from committee members? Okay. Let me ask if Senator Flores has arrived.
He's on his way.
Can you define on his way? That could be very open-ended. Let me ask, at this point, let's go ahead and bring forth testimony. I don't necessarily think we have to do witnesses in support or opposition. A number of individuals have begun to weigh in on these package of bills. If anybody wishes to testify on the package of bills at this time, please step forward. We'll hear your testimony. We're going to hear them as a package, and you might want to say that there's particular strengths or weaknesses in any one of the bills. We're not testifying on individual bills, but it's a package overall. So let's go ahead and begin with just witnesses on the package, observation on the bills. Identify yourself, and others, please step forward.
Pam Bachilla on behalf of the Western Association for College Admissions Counseling. We are in support of the entire package, and we look forward to participating in a conversation about which bill includes the best components. Students and their families plan and save for years to be able to make college a reality for students. And when we change the rules mid-game, when we change fees at the last minute, it can really put college out of reach for students. So rather than commenting on the exact best way to do this, we'd like to thank all of the authors who have introduced these measures. We look forward to participating in the conversation. But as college admissions counseling professionals, we can say with certainty it is so incredibly important that college not only be affordable, but that as students are planning to afford college, they know what that amount is going to be well in advance of getting there and having to pay it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Next witness.
Madam Chairman and members, I'm Karen Zamarripa with the California State University. Good morning. We obviously have expressed concerns about all three measures. We haven't obviously weighed in on SCA 26 for obvious reasons. I think what we would just like to reiterate and urge the committee to consider as you move forward here is I have yet to meet anyone in my now 19 years at the CSU that likes to raise fees. I have yet to find a board member that relishes the choice that they have to make as it relates to fee increases. And as the data that your committee provided for you shows, and we can give you a comparable in a chart form if that's helpful, those fees have gone up in direct relationship to the drop-in state general fund. It's almost dollar for dollar. So we would love predictability and stability. We think that would help all of us better serve students, but that requires really a comprehensive plan that couples general fund, financial aid, and student fees together. And that's the difficulty and the nut of the matter here for us, because you can't just take one component of that three primary funding sources for the institution and say that one is restricted while the other two aren't coupled with that, because they are directly linked. So how we do that, I'm not the smartest person in this room, but I think that's really the way we need to address this in the longer term. Otherwise, we're really not providing stability and predictability to students or families at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Karen French on behalf of the University of California. I would echo the comments that were made by Ms. Zamarripa. We have taken a position of oppose on SB 917, 969, and the SCA 26. We do not yet have a formal position on 1199. And we do believe that these measures raise a critical issue that deserves attention and new thinking. And we commend Senators Flores, Denham, and Lieu for bringing this forward. Our primary concern is that we don't believe that any bills containing a fee stability solution that does not ensure state support for UC and higher education is really workable. I also want to comment that imposition of additional fees is the most difficult decision that any regent has to make. It's for this reason that the regents established the Commission on the Future, and some of these very issues are being brought forward in the way of recommendations to the regents. For that reason and a number of others, we look forward to working with the committee, the legislature, and the state on finding ways to provide predictability and stability. Thank you.
Thank you. Other witnesses?
Christopher Lewis, ASUCD Lobby Corps. The Associated Students of University of California would like to put their support behind Denham's bills, SCA 26 and SB 917. The problem that we've seen in the growing years is that this continued trend of fee increases has become so unpredictable and so, almost irrational that to plan out a future based on that is impossible. The top three things in the master plan hearings that we've been talking about over and over again are affordability, access, and quality. And without affordability, you can't have access. Without having access to draw on the best students of California, you can't build that quality. So starting from the bottom and working our way up, we feel that these two bills are for a better future in California and higher education. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. My name is Marlene Garcia. I'm Vice Chancellor for the California Community College Chancellor's Office, and we have not taken a formal position as of yet. Tomorrow we'll be discussing this bill, SB 946, that is, at Consultation Council, but I did want to register some of our key concerns. One is...
Are you referring to 969?
969, sorry, yes. One is community colleges, we do not set our fees. They're established through the budget process annually and are adopted through statute. So we have no formal role in what the fees ultimately become. So we think this bill does not pertain to our specific situation. Secondly, our fees are low, and we've always advocated low fees, and we have some of the lowest fees in the country. We're 49th out of 50 in terms of fee levels set by community colleges. And the third issue is we have been on record as supporting a long-term fee policy. We think a guiding framework is helpful to guide us during especially the difficult fiscal times, but we think a complex formula for setting these fees and trying to maintain them is very cumbersome and has some real challenges in implementation. So for those reasons, we do have some grave concerns with this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other witnesses who wish to testify on the package of bills? Okay, seeing none. Senator Flores is going to be a no-show. We will move on, but nonetheless, his bill issues will be reflected in the grid that we prepare. I know the majority leader is working very hard, very diligently, and so we will just express our gratitude to his hard work. I think a number of major themes that did come over in listening to the package of bills, questions of predictability, questions of affordability and making these truly moderate and affordable, certainly issues of transparency, questions as well, too, about taking a look at the general fund and financial aid links into the account. And having said that, I just see Senator Flores has arrived. So, Senator Flores, we've just summarized the package of bills. Let's go ahead and hear from you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill, SB 969, is called the Student Fee Stabilization Act, and it simply says that when a student comes in their freshman year, whether it's the community college, the CSU, or the UC system, and they're giving a student loan or giving a fee structure, that fee structure ought to be their fee structure for the entirety of their college life in terms of freshman, sophomore, junior year. It's kind of akin to saying when you come in and you pick your major, that you don't change the major's requirements between the sophomore and junior year. You don't change the major requirements in your senior year. This, we believe, will avoid the very big spikes we've seen in terms of the middle of someone's education. As you know, we've had an 180% increase at UC, 150% increase at CSU. Those all come all of a sudden in many cases. This last increase, of course, occurred where students had to come up with $1,000, $2,000 more between the winter and spring quarters, if you're a UCLA student in this case. The goal of this also is to try to provide in a discussion manner some communication with UC and CSU on a base of funding. So I also see this as a positive because at some point in time, if we're going to try to stabilize a student fee structure, we recognize that inflation happens. So in this bill also, it allows for a 5% increase, no more than 5% increase, not 150%, not 180%, but no more than a 5% increase between, if you will, a year. So in other words, the freshman class one year might have a certain fee, the next year, the next freshman class may have a different fee, no more than 5%, because we recognize that things cost more as time goes by. But at the same time, we recognize there has to be some discussion from the UC perspective, CSU perspective, on their spending, their compensation issues, their faculty issues. We recognize that we have to pay for the jewels of our system. There's no doubt UC, for example, is one of those. The question is simply, can we provide them with a base of funding as well? And then in the middle of that, between the base of funding and holding student fees stable, where can we begin to have some stable budget practices from the legislature and the UC system in a better manner? I'll just close and simply say that obviously the goal of the bill is to make sure that when we have problems with the legislature, that we aren't looking at our students as walking ATM machines, that they should have some sense of having some stable funding, and we believe this bill begins that process.
Okay, thank you. And Senator Flores, as we've indicated, we're not taking votes on particular measures. We intend to pull people together to have the discussion.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Member Senator Huff, our vice chair, is requesting that we open the roll on Senate Bill 1091, file item 5.
1051.
1051. Call the absent members.
Maldonado. Semidian. Wyland.
Aye.
Wyland, aye. Yeah, 5-1. No, it's not.
Okay, 5-1, that measure is out.
Thank you.
Okay, we're back on, let's go ahead, members. We have a couple of items that are on consent. These are file item 6, proposed consent, file item 7, proposed consent with amendments, file item 17, proposed consent. Is there a motion? Okay, moved by Senator Huff. Call the roll.
Romero?
Aye.
Romero, aye. Huff?
Aye.
Huff, aye. Alquist? Hancock? Lou? Aye. Lou, aye. Maldonado? Price?
Aye.
Price, aye. Semidian? Semidian, aye. Wyland?
Aye.
Wyland, aye. 6-7.
Okay, 6-0. We'll keep the roll open. Senator Hancock, are you ready to present your item? File item 18.
The one for Senator Wiggins?
No, yours, Partnership Academies. You've got a couple of them, actually.
I do have quite a few.
Okay, let's go. Members, I'm going to urge us to move expeditiously. Senator Hancock, you've got 2 items, and then you are also presenting for Senator Wiggins, file item 11.
I have 3 items.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get going.
11, 15, 18, and 22. There's a couple items with them against.
Which do you wish to begin with?
I was thinking that I should begin with Senator Wiggins' item because it's the first on file order.
Okay, file item 11. Please proceed.
This is SB 1191, which I'm presenting on behalf of Senator Wiggins, and would like to begin by saying that Senator Wiggins does accept the suggested technical amendments, which clarify that we're talking about student performance on the high school exit exam. This bill seeks to strengthen the evaluation that will be done under the Quality Education Investment Act by also looking at the impact of pupil counselor ratios in student performance and school improvement. With me today to testify in support of the bill are Loretta Wilson, Executive Director of the California Association of School Counselors, Dr. Ian Martin of the University of San Diego, And I thought it was going to be Terry Burns, but maybe it's somebody else. Anyway, I have witnesses in support.
I would like to ask you just to kind of keep your comments as brief and concise as possible. We've still got a pretty full agenda, and we're supposed to be out of here by 1 o'clock. So
Under 30 seconds, okay. My name's Loretta Whitson. I'm the Executive Director for the California Association of School Counselors, and we are the sponsor of the bill. This is a common sense bill, and so my message is just that. SB 1191 will measure student outcomes for the 39 low-performing high schools that are receiving funding through the Quality Education and Investment Act. There are 25 additional high schools, but they are an alternative program, so they won't be a part of this measurement. Currently, the Quality Education Investment Program tracks only compliance figures, ensuring that the 39 high schools are providing such things as qualified staff, smaller class sizes, appropriate ratios, and textbooks. It only makes sense that whenever the state makes a strategic investment in education, that student results data should also be measured. In this case, the original aim of the Quality Education Investment Act is to turn around low-performing schools. This concern expressed were low passages of the high school exit exam, dropout rates, and student graduating without a post-secondary education or career plan. We know from recent reports of the California Department of Education that the 39 QIA schools are all in full compliance in reducing their school counselor to student ratio to 300 students to one school counselor. By supporting SB 1191, we will be able to see if the high schools funded by the Quality Education and Investment Act are effective in helping reach the goals the state of California feels are important. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Dr. Ian Martin. I'm a professor at University of San Diego. I just want to have a couple points I want to make regarding this bill. Many studies show that, particularly those focused in college access and dropout rates, identify the counselor-to-student ratio as an important variable, but there's very few opportunities that have studied the ratio itself. Therefore, this legislation that has already a ratio of 300 to 1 offers a great opportunity to understand the services that are connected to that ratio, and so therefore we support this move.
Tony Triguero, on behalf of the California Teachers Association, the group responsible for the funding of QIA schools, we're delighted to have this bill before us. We're glad to be in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support? Any witnesses opposed? And then just to stipulate, you said you were taking the amendments, correct?
Taking the amendments
Okay.
suggested in the analysis.
All right. Any other
I would like
questions?
to be added as a co-author as well.
As well as a jockey hat, huh? Any questions by committee members? Okay, we have a motion. You have any close?
I would ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Romero? Aye. Romero, aye. Huff?
Aye.
Huff, aye. Alquist? Hancock?
Aye.
Hancock, aye. Lou? Lou, aye. Maldonado? Price?
Aye.
Price, aye. Smidian? Wyland? 5 votes. Goodness.
It's 5 votes. We'll keep it on call. Move it back over to you.
Thank you very much.
Next item, Senator Hancock.
The next item is SB 1298, which is about joint powers agreements for ROCPs. And really, Madam Chairman, is about the state's ability to ensure that during this period of financial difficulty, we not dismantle a system of career technical education that has been worked on for many, many years by many members of this legislature. A year ago, when the legislature approved extraordinary flexibility for school districts, we made some cleanup when we began to realize various problems that were taking place. Unfortunately, not all the problems were identified at the time that we did that, and SB 1298 responds to the unique problems that became apparent because regional occupational centers are the only regional education program included in flexibility. So the decision of one district in a case where these are joint powers agreements can impact the education of students in many districts. And as you know, the expense of setting up ROCP programs with sequences of courses, with the special equipment that's involved, has meant that we have made investments in our ROCPs. And this bill would simply resolve the problem by providing that a district can't withdraw from a joint powers agreement unless the State Board of Education determines that that will not negatively impact career technical education opportunities for students in other districts. I'm happy to accept the amendment suggested on page 5 that we limit that to the last 2 years, 2011 to 2013, of the flexibility. And would just point out that the problem is that if you dismantle this incipient system that is so looked to so hopefully to decrease our dropout rate, to prepare our young people for the jobs of the future, you can undo in a few years what it took 5 or 10 years to build, and then how will we rebuild it again? SB 1298 is supported by the Small Schools District Association, the Association of Regional Occupational Centers, Small Business California, the California Charter Schools Association, many organizations who are here in support. I have with me today Peter Birdsall from the statewide ROCP organization, David Walrath from the Small Schools District Association, and others.
And let me just indicate that the amendments would be adopted if the committee does choose to pass the bill. All right.
Right, but
2 witnesses in support.
Peter Birdsall, representing the California Association of Regional Occupation Centers and Programs. Real quickly, I want to indicate what the bill does not do. It does not seek to remove ROCPs from the categorical flexibility. ROCPs were subject to a 21% cut in state funding, so school districts and counties up and down the state have had to use the flexibility to manage those cuts. So my guess is our association would actually oppose the bill if it was going to take ROPs out of the flexibility. The issue is one identified by Senator Hancock, which is this unique problem of ROCPs are the only regional structure that's included in the flexibility, and so you have this problem where one district can make a decision unilaterally that negatively impacts students in other districts. I can give you lots of examples. One I chose to use is an automotive technology program. 3 districts, this happened all around the state. Several districts, and I'll say 3 districts, came together to support an automotive technology program, which is very expensive in terms of equipment and other needs. If one district pulls out, then that's not just a local decision, that impacts the other 2 districts, which either have now to come up with more money to maintain the program, or now they're going to lose a program that would have been a priority for their communities. So this, you need to somehow resolve those issues, those disputes. This says that those issues would go to the State Board of Education to resolve those kind of interagency problems that I think are an unanticipated problem that came out of flexibility.
Thank you. Second witness.
Dave Walrath, representing Small School Districts Association. Small school districts tend to have fewer students participating in these programs. If a larger district pulls out, the small district won't have enough students to make the program. They won't be able to financially operate the program. And the issue has been very clearly identified as a regional issue. Our concern is the same as if you start having too many programs dismantled, it'll be almost impossible to resurrect them, particularly in rural areas where it's difficult to find qualified instructors. So in 2013 and 2014, if programs have been dropped prior to that time, it'll be very difficult to reestablish those programs. We do not believe the intent of flexibility was to allow one district to create harm for the students of another district. We believe it was flexibility to assist the students within that single district without ramifications to other districts. For these reasons, we are in support of this bill.
Thank you. Other witnesses, just simply identify yourselves.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Chris Walker on behalf of the California Industrial and Technology Education Association, the California Association of Sheet Metal Air Conditioning Contractors, and the California Automotive Business Coalition, all three clients in strong support of the bill.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members, Rand Martin on behalf of the California Charter Schools Association in support of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Jeff Freitas from the California Federation of Teachers in support of this bill.
Other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Two witnesses, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I'm Dennis Myers with the California Association of School Business Officials. I just want to preface my comments by saying that we are not in any way prejudiced against career tech education. This is solely a bill that really centers on the Tier 3 flexibility that you adopted February 2009 at the beginning of what we've seen, just a complete slide in support for school funding. School districts across the state are desperately in need of flexibility, and you knew that when you adopted the Tier 3 flexibility. And you know, there's 42 constituencies in Tier 3 right now. Our concern is multiple. One is if you separate out career tech ed, as this bill does, you are going to open up the floodgates to every constituency who does not want to be a part of Tier 3 flexibility. Secondly, by building a fence around this particular program, you are taking away a tool that districts have relied upon since February 2009 to do such things as make payroll. That's the level of concern that school districts have right now, and they're using flexibility to do things like make payroll, pay bills, focus on core program. It's getting down to that level because districts are so seriously trying to make the right decisions. As difficult as it is, sometimes some school districts are going to look at the ROCP program as a place where they can create some savings. But again, as tough as those decisions are, that's something that you allowed local districts to do. So with that, we're opposing the bill. Maybe a better way, as one witness said on the support side, is this doesn't take ROCPs out of Tier 3. Actually, that would be just a much more honest way to write this bill, is just take ROCPs out of Tier 3, put them in Tier 2. The cut remains because essentially that's what you're doing here. Just the way the bill is written right now is it completely eliminates the flexibility that you adopted with regard to ROCP programs. So with that reason, we're opposed.
Thank you. Second witness.
Sandy Silverstein, representing the 23 school districts in Riverside County and the Riverside County Superintendent of Schools. We're also opposed for the reasons that Mr. Myers cited. I'd like to suggest to you that, yes, we're concerned about moving away from Tier 3, from the flexibility you gave us for all of those reasons. We also understand this concern about career technical ed and somehow protecting it. We think there are better ways to do this than to take away local flexibility and send the decision up to the State Board of Education. Remember, part of the local flexibility was to move toward more local control. Two suggestions on a better way to do this. One, if you want to protect career technical education, measure it. We are all now focused on an outcome-based system whereby school districts are laser-like focused on those things that you measure. And that's what's your achievement gap look like? Address that. Make sure that students are achieving. If you add CTE to that measurement, we will go there. We will protect, and we will find the best way to provide career technical education. Don't tell us how. Just give us the what. We'll figure out the how. It's local control. The second thing to think about is we are having regional conversations about how to protect regional programs. ROP is not the only regional program that was included in Tier 3. BITSA was in there. That's a regional program. Professional development is in there. That's a regional program. What's happening there, at least in Riverside County, is we are having regional discussions about how do we protect those programs so that all school districts have access to them in a new way, given local flexibility and the autonomy of districts. And I suggest that's a better way to protect career technical education than to undo local control and local flexibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Other witnesses, identify yourselves.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Terry McGann from California Strategies and Advocacy, representing Centinela High School District, and we are opposed to the bill at this time.
Next witness.
I'm Douglas Abendroth, North Nash and Abendroth, an attorney representing Centinela Valley Union High School District, and we are opposed until the bill is amended to become more constitutional.
Thank you. Other witnesses in opposition? Please step forward.
Jose Fernandez, Superintendent, Centinela Valley, and we're in opposition to the bill.
Thank you.
We're available for questions, ma'am.
All right, questions or comments from the committee? Senator Hancock, let me raise the concern, and I do not have a recommendation to the committee. The staff really went with this, looked at it. I am very concerned about us undoing what we agreed to and voted upon last year in the budget deal. Those were intense negotiations, as imperfect as that budget was. I mean, that is one issue, and I think to a certain extent we need to ask ourselves, do we, on any measure of the budget, if there's a concern, do we come back and run legislation? Because I could see a whole lot of us unhappy with different parts of the budget and perhaps running legislation. That's a first concern. I think perhaps in terms of looking even at our House overall, what does it portend for even the House doing its business? And does one believe a deal when a deal is struck? I think that's the first concern. I think a second concern is, of course, I do believe in local control. I do believe in flexibility at the local level. I do see that there has been more and more the push and the pull for Sacramento to get out of the way of the districts and let the districts operate. And it may mean one district does a particular issue, another district does it another way. Having said that, I think every one of us is going to say that we all support career technical education, and it was interesting to hear the suggested ways perhaps in which we could mend it. You know, if we establish it, if we say we're going to measure it, it shall be done, but do we say how it will be done? I am concerned by looking again to the smaller districts and the impacts that it will have. But I still going back to my overriding philosophy, I think more so is that should not this be done at the local level where flexibility is key? And once we voted for it in the budget deal and the governor signed it into action, what does it mean to come and attempt to undo it a few months later? I understand, and you've been a very passionate advocate for career technical education, for our regional occupation centers and programs. I absolutely understand that and appreciate that, but this is the concern that I face. Therefore, I am not going to support the bill, but I'll leave it open to the committee and see what other committee members may feel on the issue. No,
I do have, yeah.
Senator Hancock, yes.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if the association has any comments, but just maybe I'll ask Mr. Berthel if you do, and then I can close if there are no other questions.
Okay, any other comments then from committee members? No, not on this issue. Senator Liu.
I do have some of the concerns that were expressed by the opposition. And they did give other suggestions as to perhaps a way to protect career tech ed. And I do have the concerns that the chair has already identified, a deal's a deal's a deal. And even though how terrible a deal it is, it was a terrible deal, I think, for the last 6 years anyway. So
let me just comment on that. We already made changes to correct problems that came up. We did it last July in subsequent legislation to the legislation that was adopted in February. I consider this very much the same thing. We hadn't had enough time to realize the potential problems. So that to me, this is cleanup again. I don't think, one reason we have legislation is that when unanticipated problems arise, we can come in and fix them. And in the case of the Joint Powers Agreement, you can say a deal's a deal. These Joint Powers Agreements were set up. I can see, actually, I would love to work with the opposition, have the bill move forward, and see what we can work on. There are other things that we might look at doing. For example, if the other districts in a joint powers agreement don't see a problem for them, you could dissolve that part of the partnership. But otherwise, you're in a situation where the actions of one district can really dissolve a program that many districts use and have come to rely on. In terms of the measurements, actually, in AB 2448, we do measure CTE when CalPADS kicks in. There are some things that will be there. But really, I think we need to measure career technical education by the same standards that we measure academic education, because in my mind, it's experiential, hands-on learning, and that it will be and needs to be judged by high school completion, dropout rates, as we just voted on today, and successful transition to higher education, other criteria like that. The problem that we do have is that there's been a great deal of legislation in the last 5 years. It doesn't take much to dismantle the systems that people have just put in place and are working very hard to institutionalize. So I would respectfully ask the members of the committee to recognize this, if you will, as part of the ongoing cleanup that we do with any technical education. See it as a work in progress, and I will be happy to work with the opposition and with anybody else who has suggestions for making sure that we don't dismantle our CTE programs because of one district deciding they don't want to participate in a joint powers agreement that they previously had adopted.
Senator Hancock, I'm going to indicate that it is true we've gone back to take a look at budget and do clarification, but I think more accurately, those have typically come through leadership and through the budget committee when we've done some of those changes. Having said that, let me see, is there a motion on the bill? Senator Hancock, do you wish to move your bill?
I will move the bill.
The bill has been moved. Secretary, call the roll.
Romero?
No.
Romero, no. Huff? Alquist? Hancock?
Aye.
Hancock, aye. Blue? Blue, aye. Maldonado? Price? Price, no. Semidian? Semidian, no. Wyland?
Okay, the bill has 2 votes. We will keep it on call. Senator Hancock, let's move forward with your next item. I'm going to call attention. Oh, Senator Semidian, you had a scheduling conflict, I believe.
Everybody does, Madam Chair, but if there was an opportunity you could take me up, I'd appreciate it.
Senator Hancock, would you object to allowing Senator Semidian to present his one bill, and then we'll return to you?
I will give him that courtesy.
All right, but stay on deck because we're going to move quickly. Senator Semidian is file item 20. We're just going to accommodate you because you've got a conflict here. We have no opposition. Please bear that in mind as you present.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I think there may be late opposition. Let me check with my staff. Yes, there is apparently a late letter from CTA on the issue.
All right.
Bearing that in mind, I'll still be brief, Madam Chair. Here's the question, and it's really the question. What's the right age to start kindergarten? That's the question. You're going to hear about a lot of other issues. That's understandable. I've got a lot of other issues as well. But the question is, what's the right age to start kindergarten? I think that 5 is the right age to start kindergarten. But frankly, Madam Chair and members, it doesn't matter what I think. What matters is what really does produce results for kids, not just in their kindergarten year, but in all the successive years, K through 12, and then later in life. The overwhelming body of research says kids really ought to be 5. Not 4 3/4, which is what California currently allows. California, as you know, Madam Chair and members, is one of just 4 states in the country that has a start date, or excuse me, a cutoff date after December 1st, one of just 4 states. Everybody from the PPIC to the RAND Corporation to the Governor's Commission on Excellence in Education to our own LAO has said, you know what, 5 really is the date that makes sense. Interestingly, in this debate, there's been some question about what's motivating the conversation. Is it about money or is it about kids? So let's just put that out on the table right now. It's about kids. My view is if we can let children be children a little bit longer, that's a good thing. My view is that if we can let kids start kindergarten at an age when they're more likely to be successful, that's a good thing. My view is if that produces some savings that would allow us to take $350 million and put it towards underfunded state preschool programs, that's a good thing. Those are all good things for children. They're all things I think this committee will want to support. I know that the devil is in the details, but I would respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Okay, witnesses, briefly, 2 witnesses in support.
We have LAO here just as a resource, and then we do have witnesses.
Thank you. Audine Mack with the Association of California School Administrators. I believe that without a doubt we agree with Senator Simitian's approach as it relates to the developmental stages of children at the age of 5, and that it's important that they start kindergarten after they turn the age of 5. We think that really promotes better growth in their development at that time. The one piece that I would add is as it relates to state preschool, and I believe this was noted in the analysis, that state preschool only serves children that are 3 and 4-year-olds, so there will be kind of a gap, and that we need to address that as it relates to those students that are younger, that are at this point would be about 4 3/4 years of age and are gapped out of preschool before they start kindergarten. Obviously, there are some fiscal concerns regarding the issue and how the resources are allocated with the budget savings and the impact on some districts. However, as it relates to the policy, actually, ACSA fully supports moving the kindergarten start date back. Thank you.
Thank you. Second witness.
Jeff Freitas with the California Federation of Teachers. I do not have a position on this bill. We do have a position on the policy of this bill and moving the start date back. We absolutely agree with that. However, as the previous speaker said, we do have concerns which the author is not unaware of, and we're not asking for a no vote, just to be clear. Thanks.
Any other witnesses in support? Simply identify yourself. Witnesses in opposition.
Good afternoon. Jennifer Baker with the California Teachers Association. Unfortunately, we weren't able to garner an internal official position on the measure in time to make it in the analysis, but we were able to have a conversation with committee staff and appreciate that, and also have extensive conversations with the senator in his office. And I'd like to truly commend he and his staff for the work they've been doing. It's truly meritorious. We absolutely 100% agree with the policy. It does make a very systemic change when it comes to serving kids, particularly students of color, on a multitude of levels. Unfortunately, it really comes down to the dollars, and we believe that by diverting funds to try to alleviate the state budget crisis, that begins to enter into a larger, more complicated discussion that we're currently having on a multitude of levels with you and other offices regarding the budget. But ultimately, we believe that if you are going to make a change, that there has to be immediate and full access to all students who would have otherwise had the opportunity to attend kindergarten. And unfortunately, the current state preschool program is not able to offer that to all students, and our internal belief is that we should be able to make an immediate change there. We absolutely want to continue to work with the senator and believe that the policy is meritorious. Finding a solution has in the past and continues to be complicated, but we'll continue to have those conversations.
Thank you. Senator Simitian, there were some suggested recommended amendments on page 5 of the analysis. Can you please address those?
I'm happy to take those amendments as author's amendments. Appreciate the staff's recommendation. I think they make the bill a better bill.
Okay, great. Is there a motion on the bill as amended? Move the bill by Senator Liu. Closing comments quickly.
Briefly, just what brought this issue back to my attention after years of discussion, Madam Chair, was 289 teachers in my district who brought me a petition saying they thought the age ought to be 5. Interestingly, members, it wasn't just kindergarten teachers. It was kindergarten through 12th grade, because those teachers were telling me or us that it wasn't just that kindergarten year, it was all the years that follow where they could tell what the impact had been on the kids who had started too young and were lagging year after year after year. This is not just about kindergarten, it's about success throughout the course of a K through 12 experience, and I would argue throughout the educational experience and beyond. I appreciate the committee's time, and I would request an aye vote.
Senator Simitian, I will vote for the bill today. Let me also underscore as well that even right now, districts as well have some flexibility to be able to enroll. If we move to this policy, they would still have the flexibility to still admit a student who's under age 5 given particular assessment. So I do want to underscore
Absolutely
that.
right. That's existing law, and it is still, that language is still contained in the language of the bill, and is there for anyone who cares to look.
All right, Secretary, call the roll.
Romero?
Aye.
Romero, aye. Huff? Alquist? Hancock? Lou? Lou, aye. Maldonado? Price?
Aye.
Price, aye. Simitian?
Aye.
Simitian, aye. Wyland?
The bill has 4 votes. It will remain on call. Thank you,
Madam
Senator
Chair, and
Simitian.
thank you, members. I appreciate the
Senator Hancock, she graciously stepped aside from the podium. All right. Let's see. Senator Yee, the bill is going to be presented by Senator Leno. He's not here either. Senator Correa has been waiting very patiently. Perhaps the patience ceased. Senator Cedillo, he may still be dreaming. Who knows? All right. Let's move forward. Let's go ahead and let's start. Who's in? Senator Hancock. Wonderful. Thank you. Senator Hancock, and again, thank you for your graciousness in stepping aside from the podium for a moment. You have Senate Bill 8, File Item 18, correct?
That's correct. I do. And I also have File Item 22.
Yes, you've got 2 more. Let me, Senator Hancock, in the interest of time, File Item 18, Career Partnership Academies, no opposition. Please keep that in mind as you briefly present.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. File Item 18, SB 1354, does 3 things to clarify school-to-career partnership academies, which are really the jewels in many ways of our CTE system. It updates the criteria for student participation. It allows for a cost of living adjustment if adopted in the state budget, since there has not been a cost of living adjustment since 1990 for these academies. And it requires that the CTE courses and partnership academies be part of a sequence of courses. I would ask for your aye vote, and I have representatives with me from the ROCPs and the State Department of Education.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members. Chris Reef on behalf of the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Jack O'Connell. The Superintendent is the sponsor of this measure. The Superintendent strongly encourages your aye vote. Briefly, one of the main issues here is partnership academies. Much of the discussion that the committee has had in past years has exemplified the wonderful work of partnership academies and the great work that they do. As you know, partnership academies are grant-based. They don't currently have a COLA. They've been around since 1993-94 when they became a full statewide program. They were actually a pilot program started in the early 80s. Since then, there has actually been no COLA, and as a result of the placement of partnership academies in Tier 2 in last year's budget, the cuts that occurred for partnership academies very much expounded and was exponential on the pain that they incurred as a result of those cuts. And so the COLA will help to really bolster the work of partnership academies and really help to raise awareness, I think, within the legislature about the impacts that those cuts or possible future cuts could have on partnership academies because of the lack of a COLA. The bill also, as the Senator stated previously, brings standard basic practice of the partnership academies up to compliance with state statute. These are basic guidance that we provide to partnership academies. I also have with me our consultant who oversees our partnership academies programs if there are technical questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Terry Burns on behalf of the California Association of Regional Occupational Centers and Programs and the California Association of Leaders of Career Preparation, CALCIP. We want to commend the effort to continue the pathways approach that these partnership academies do resolve. They work with ROCPs to provide capstone courses in many cases, so that it is a continuation of learning that leads often to certifications that folks can use to just go out and start jobs right out of school. So we think it's a great idea.
Excellent. Senator Hancock, I think this is an excellent bill. I'd like to be added as a co-author. Let me ask you if you can address the staff recommended amendments, if you are accepting those.
Oh, yes, I am.
All right, perfect. Questions from the committee? Move the bill by Senator Liu. Please call the roll.
Romero?
Aye.
Romero, aye. Huff? Alquist? Hancock? Liu? Liu, aye. Hancock?
Aye.
Hancock, aye. Maldonado? Price? Price, aye. Semidian? Wyland?
4-0, the bill's on call. And your final item is file item 22. Again, no opposition. Keep that in mind.
Thank you very much, Senator Romero. Let me start by saying I'll accept and work with your staff on the suggested amendments. SB 1432 simply says that when a school district applies for state funding for new construction, it will certify that it has looked at the required plans for special education and access, and that has complied with those. And it's a way of making sure the dialogue happens, because we're building schools that still don't meet our standards and requirements. There's no opposition to the bill. I'm here today with Tom Duffy of the Coalition for Adequate School Housing, the sponsor of the bill, and others in support.
Okay, thank you. Witnesses in support.
Madam Chair and members, Tom Duffy for CASH. We are the sponsors of the bill. Ms. Liu, in discussing Mr. Huff's proposal earlier, you mentioned the civil rights of pupils that have special needs, and you are absolutely correct. Both federal law and state law looks at special education students as a suspect class. The issue at hand is being able to provide the least restrictive environment for special education pupils. And what this bill would do, and it's simple, just as the good senator expressed it to you, what it would do is to make sure that there's a dialogue at the local level, because in serving special ed students, you have a continuum of service. Mr. Huff was talking about isolated school sites where you have plenty of resources, and that's at one end of the continuum. The other is a regular school site where special ed services would be provided if students' IEPs require that. And we want to make sure that there is that location on a school site as we plan into the future, and that's what this bill does. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Second witness.
Terry Burns again on behalf of CALCIP. As mentioned before, we've done a lot of investment in career technical education facilities over the last couple of years. Proposition 1D includes this. We're very much supportive of ensuring that these standards are there so that special education students can participate in CTE programs.
Great. Witnesses in support.
Ian Padilla with the County Schools Facilities Coalition in strong support. Of course, county offices of education are responsible for providing facilities for special education students, and so we appreciate the Senator introducing this bill to highlight and make progress on this issue. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Is there a motion on the bill as amended? Move the bill. Secretary, call the roll.
Romero?
Aye.
Romero, aye. Huff? Huff, no. Alquist. Hancock.
Aye.
Hancock, aye. Lou. Aye. Lou, aye. Maldonado. Price. Aye. Price, aye. Semidian. Wyland.
4-1. 4-1, the measure's on call. Sergeants, do we have Senator Leno, Correa, and Cedillo? And in the meantime, why don't we go ahead and start lifting calls on our measures until we get an author in committee? Sergeants, if you can please let the authors know that we need to be out of here within the hour.
Would you like to do the consent calendar?
Let's do the consent calendar first. Call the absent members on the consent calendar.
Alquist. Maldonado. That's it. She wants to leave it on for
All right.
Alquist.
We'll leave the roll open. Okay, let's start walking through the items until we get an author. Which is this one?
This is item number 2.
File item 2, SB 930, Ducheney. Call the absent members.
Hancock. She just walked out. Maldonado. Wyland.
Okay, that measure remains on call. File item 3, SB 956, Romero. Call the absent members.
This was what we did as a subcommittee.
Oh, this one is a subcommittee, so we need a motion.
Yes.
Okay, I'll move the bill.
Okay. Romero.
Aye.
Romero, aye. Huff.
Which one are we, sorry?
956.
The training of teachers, math, science. Great bill.
Sure.
No. Huff, no. Alquist. Hancock. Lou. Aye. Lou, aye. Maldonado. Price. Semidian. Wyland.
Okay, that measure has 2 votes. We'll keep it on call. File item 8, Senator Alquist.
SB 1148.
Call the
to
absent
pass.
members.
Maldonado. Wyland.
The roll will remain open. File item 9. This is
SB.
due pass to rules. Desaulnier. Call the absent members.
SB 1157. Alquist. Maldonado. Semidian. Wyland.
File item 10, Lowenthal, SB 1161. Do we need a motion?
We need a motion.
Okay, this one we do need a motion on this bill. Moved by Senator Liu. Call the roll.
Romero.
Aye.
Romero, aye. Huff.
Aye.
Huff, aye. Alquist. Hancock. Lou. Aye. Lou, aye. Maldonado. Price. Semidian. Wyland.
3 votes. The measure's on call. Sergeants, if you can give us a status report on those members. File item 11, Senator Wiggins. Call the absent members.
This is SB 1191. Alquist. Maldonado. Semidian. Wyland.
The measure remains on call. File item 12. This was due pass as amended. Senator Lowenthal. We started as a subcommittee. Is there a motion on the bill?
It's SB 1193.
Move the bill by Senator Liu. Call the members.
Romero.
Aye.
Romero, aye. Huff.
No.
Huff, no. Alquist. Hancock. Lou. Lou, aye. Maldonado. Price. Semidian. Wyland.
Okay, 2 votes. The measure's on call. File item 14.
It is Senator. Oh, we haven't seen this one. Yes.
Okay, let's pause. Senator Leno has arrived.
Can you lift the call on 22 again?
All right, let's lift the call on file item 22. File item 22, this is SB 1432 by Senator Hancock. Call the absent members.
Alquist. Maldonado. Semidian. Wyland.
And Huff, no to aye. If I can do that.
Okay, Huff, no to aye.
Okay. You have enough votes for that to go.
All right, we'll keep that. It hasn't enough votes, but we will keep the roll open. All right, Senator Leno, I understand you are going to be presenting on behalf of Senator Yee.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, do you wish to start with his bill?
Why not?
Okay, file item 14.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. Senator Yee is not feeling well today and has asked that I present this bill for him.
Tell him he looked quite vibrant on CNN.
That's not for me to comment.
And let me just indicate as well, there is no opposition on this measure. We are under a tight time frame. Please keep that in mind.
I will be very brief then. This was a pilot program created a 5-year child care subsidy pilot program in the city and county of San Francisco to address the particular child care needs for low-income families. We're, in this bill, extending the sunset, which is due to expire 2010, end of this year, and we would extend that to 2013. The bill would not result in additional state costs. So I'd ask for your aye vote.
Okay, 2 witnesses in support.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Marty Lusich. I'm the citywide child care administrator for the Department of Children, Youth, and their Families in San Francisco. We strongly support this bill. It keeps working families in San Francisco, and it provides subsidized child care for those families.
Thank you. Next witness.
Nicole Wortelman on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco. Prior to this pilot project, San Francisco was losing child care slots, and this pilot program helps them to run an efficient and effective program with no additional cost to the state.
Okay.
Chris Reef on behalf of State Superintendent of Public Instruction Jack O'Connell. The superintendent has not taken an official position on this measure, but has been working very closely with the City of San Francisco and has been very appreciative of that cooperation, and I appreciate that relationship, as well as the support and effort from Senator Yee, and would encourage the committee to move the bill forward so that we can continue to have those conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Is there a motion on the bill?
You said 2013. It says, in my notes, it's 2016. Is it 2013?
16, excuse me.
16. Okay.
Thank you for catching that.
All right. So I'll move the bill.
Okay, thank you.
I'm
Call
sorry,
the roll.
it was San Mateo County that extended theirs to 2013, so thank you for clarifying that.
Romero? Aye. Romero, aye. Huff? No. Huff, no. Alquist? Hancock? Lou? Lou, aye. Maldonado? Price? Price, aye. Semidian? Wyland? 3.
3 votes. That measure's on call. And then file item 21, your bill.
Thank you. This is SB 1413. Very simply removes barriers to providing the healthiest of beverages for students in settings where they are having their meal at school, and that would be water. Amazingly, that is not the case right now. There are oftentimes are uncertainties in the contracts that are signed with bottled water providers that the school cannot provide cool, free drinking water. So I authored a bill similar to this, slight differences just a couple years ago, passed both houses with bipartisan support. Unfortunately, the governor vetoed it. He's had a change of mind and heart, and now is the sponsor of this bill, realizing that there are great benefits to this. Of course, we have already banned soda water from schools, but what are the options if they don't have the cash in their pockets to buy bottled water, meaning they probably can't afford milk either, or even the very sugary fruit drinks that are still available. So this would require that schools do provide cool, free drinking water in their cafeterias, and I would ask for your aye vote.
Okay. No opposition on the measure. Limited to 2 witnesses to speak in support.
I'm Dr. Linda Rudolph. I'm Deputy Director for Chronic Disease Prevention in the California Department of Public Health. We support this bill because we think it will both improve the health of students in California and also will help academic achievement. It's consistent with recommendations from both the Institute of Medicine and the Centers for Disease Control to provide access to free drinking water for all students. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness in support.
Yes, I'm Ellen Braff Guajardo. I work with California Food Policy Advocates, and out of respect for your time, I have summarized my 3 minutes of testimony to the following 3 sentences. SB 1413 promotes learning, supports obesity prevention, upholds equity, endorses the natural choice, and advances healthy habits. Access to free, fresh drinking water is something enjoyed by pets, prisoners, agricultural workers, and restaurant clientele. School children deserve no less.
Thank you very much. Others, simply identify yourself.
Jennifer Baker with the California Teachers Association in support.
Jeff Freitas with the California Federation of Teachers in support, and sorry for the late support.
Judy Michaels representing Jericho, a voice for justice in support.
Jennifer Richard with the California Center for Public Health Advocacy in support.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Any opposition? Is there a motion on the bill? So moved by Senator Price. Call the roll.
Romero?
Aye.
Romero, aye. Huff?
No.
Huff, no. Alquist? Hancock? Lou? Lou, aye. Maldonado?
How about for heritage schools?
Senator Price? Senator Price, aye. Semidian? Wyland?
Okay, there's 3 votes. The measure will be on call.
Thank you very much.
Senator Cedillo.
Thank you.
File item 23. Please step forward. Senator Cedillo.
Madam Chair, members, what a pleasure and honor it is to be here to present you with this very thoughtful bill that reflects California's promise and commitment to the future. That is a very reasoned and measured effort for us to acknowledge challenges that confront us with respect to immigration reform. We all want immigration reform. We all want people to come here legally. But the fact of the matter is our immigration reform system is broken, and these efforts, with others, are efforts to make sure that in the interim, as we sit on the cusp of immigration reform in Washington, D.C., we as a state do not suffer, that we as a state continue to do all that we can to integrate and assimilate immigrants into the social fabric of our society, particularly those who are young, and in the educational system, that we continue to provide them for opportunities to become the future leaders of our state. As such, I bring you the California DREAM Act, a measure that has come before you before, a measure that we are working with the administration to get to the place where we can make sure that young people who are here through no choice of their own, young people who are brought here by their parents and who have no decisions in that process, but who do all that they can under their difficult circumstances. They learn English, they perform well, not at the best schools, they move forward, and they enter our most prestigious universities through sheer hard work and playing by the rules, that those young people should not be punished for the ills of their parents. And so this bill simply provides an opportunity for that small percentage, less than 1%, at the UC level, less than 0.5%, that provides an opportunity for them to apply for scholarships that are state administered. That is the California DREAM Act. It has broad support, editorial support, chamber support, and obviously support from the educational community, and I am proud to offer that to you.
Thank you. Okay, 2 witnesses in support.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Erica Romero on behalf of the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities in strong support of this legislation. AB 540 students include some of our best and brightest, and they've overcome very strong odds to attend some of these great institutions. And by denying them financial aid, we're hampering their ability to become economic contributors to our state. We look forward to the passage of this bill as well as federal legislation which will allow them to get a pathway to citizenship and get jobs after they graduate. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Yes, Oganilia Ramirez with the California State Student Association. We are in strong support and have supported the bill in the past. This is a great example, we believe, of how the state can support student success and at the same time take a proactive step in meeting the state's educated workforce needs for the near future.
Thank you. Other witnesses, identify yourselves.
Tony Triguero on behalf of the California Teachers Association. We're honored to support this bill.
Bonnie Slauson representing the Community College League, and we too are in support of this measure and also working very hard at the federal level to have those changes for a federal DREAM Act as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Sandra Vargas on behalf of the California Catholic Conference, also in strong support.
Judith Michaels, California Federation of Teachers, in strong support.
Karen French, University of California, in support.
Mark McDonald McCallum Group on behalf of a number of community college districts, including Los Angeles, Rio Hondo, San Jose Evergreen, in strong support of the measure. Thank you.
Andrew Martinez, California State University, in support.
Virginia Strong Martin on behalf of Los Angeles Unified School District in strong support.
Thank you. Any witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, are there, and let me just clarify, Senator Cedillo, there were a couple of recommended, you accept those?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Questions or comments from the committee? Let me acknowledge that we have the presence of a number of very talented youth in our community. They are visiting today as part of the NCLR, National Council of La Raza. It was an honor for me and Senator Cedillo to present to them this morning. NCLR is the nation's largest Latino civil rights and advocacy organization, and welcome to the California State Senate. Senator Cedillo, you may close.
This is a bill that we've been working on for some time, and I'm pleased to work with the administration to find a place that we can reach resolution. These young people are extraordinary, and I say that with no hyperbole. They are extraordinary in their ability and their commitment to overcome tremendous challenges. They are our best and brightest. They perform at the highest levels, and they really are our future. They deserve our support. We need them to be successful. We need them to succeed. And so we should do this in the spirit of our positive commitment both to the history of the state, to its present, and to its future. This DREAM Act should be passed and should be signed, and I'm just very proud to be part of this. Very proud to be part of the California State Legislature, a body and an entity where we can come together and discuss issues that are challenging for others, complex for us, but do so in a way with complete dignity and respect for all the participants of this dialogue. I thank you, and I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Secretary, do we have a motion on the bill? I move the bill. Secretary, call the roll.
Romero?
Aye.
Romero, aye. Huff?
No.
Huff, no. Alquist? Hancock? Lou? Lou, aye. Maldonado? Price? Price, aye. Semidian? Wyland? Wyland, no.
Okay, the bill has three votes. It's on call. Thank you very much, Senator Cedillo, and thank you so much, students, for being here in our Education Committee today. Members, file item 16 by Senator Carrillo has been put over at the request of the author. We are going to lift the calls at this point. We're asking for all members of Education Committee to please return to the committee room. Senator Alquist, she perhaps might not arrive till 1:45. If that's the case, we will keep the roll open for her. But if she is in the building, can we call her office and see if she can be returned to the committee room? Okay. Well, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and allow for these members to vote on the bills, and then we will keep the roll open and we'll come back for those members. Okay, members, we're going to go in the order of. Just go ahead. Yeah, why don't you just do it?
We're going to go with item number 2, SB 930. Hancock, Maldonado, Semidian.
Okay, the members, we are now lifting call. This is file item number 2. Ducheney, call the absent members.
Hancock, Maldonado. Oh, I'm sorry, Hancock. Aye. You came in? Sorry. Maldonado, okay. Semidian. Wyland? Wyland, no.
Okay, let's look at this. Okay, has everybody, because who's missing?
6, 7. We're missing Maldonado.
Is he coming or no?
And Semidian.
Oh, okay. Okay, we will keep that roll open. It has sufficient votes, right?
It does have.
It has sufficient votes. We'll keep the roll open. File item 3, SB 956. Romero, call the absent members.
Alquist. Hancock.
Aye.
Hancock, aye. Maldonado. Price. Semidian. Wyland.
No.
Wyland, no.
Okay, 3-0. The measure's on call. File item 8, call the absent members.
SB 1148, Maldonado, Semidion, Wyland. Wyland, aye.
That bill has sufficient votes. We'll keep the roll open.
7, 10.
File item 9, Desaulnier, call the absent members.
SB 1157, Alquist, Maldonado, Semidion, Wyland.
No.
Wyland, no. 4-2.
The bill is still on call, and I'm going to suggest that we exclude calling the names of Alquist, Maldonado, and Semidion. They are out of the committee, and let's just dispense with the members here at the dais. We'll keep the rolls open. Can we do that?
Yeah.
All right, file item 10, Senator Lowenthal. Call the absent members in the room.
Okay. SB 1161, Hancock.
Aye.
Hancock, aye. Price.
Okay, the measure still is, well, Wyland.
I'm sorry, Wyland. Threw me off there. Wyland, aye. You have enough votes?
Okay, we have sufficient votes. We'll keep the roll open. File item 11, Senator Wiggins' bill. Call the members.
This is SB 1191. Wyland.
Aye.
Wyland, aye. You have enough votes?
There are sufficient votes. We'll keep the roll open. File item 12, Lowenthal. Call the members.
SB 1193. Hancock.
Aye.
Hancock, aye. Wyland.
No.
Wyland, no.
Okay, the measure is still on call. File item 14, Senator Yee. Call the absent members.
SB 1225. Hancock.
Aye.
Hancock, aye. Wyland.
No.
Wyland, no.
The measure remains on call. File item 15, Senator Hancock. Call the absent members.
SB 1298. Huff.
Aye.
Huff, aye. Wyland.
Aye.
Wyland, aye. 4-3.
Okay, 4 votes. The measure remains on call. File item.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I don't know how we're going to go back on this, but if we do not get sufficient votes today, I would like to request reconsideration.
Absolutely. That's automatically granted, Senator Hancock. File item 18. Call the absent members.
SB 1354. Huff.
No.
Huff, no. Wyland. Wyland, no. 4-2.
4-2. The measure remains on call. File item 19, Senator Steinberg. Call the absent members.
Wyland.
Aye.
Wyland, aye.
We have sufficient votes. The measure will remain on, the roll will remain open. File item 20, Senator Semidion. Call the absent members.
SB 1381. Huff. Huff, yes. Huff, aye. Hancock.
Hancock.
Wyland.
Which one are we on now?
Semidion.
Number 20. Aye.
Wyland, aye. Hancock.
Okay, the measure. Okay, there are sufficient votes. We will keep the measure, the roll open. File item 21, Senator Leno. Call the absent members.
SB 1413. Hancock.
Aye.
Hancock, aye. Wyland.
No.
Wyland, no. 4-2.
4 votes. The measure remains on call. File item 22, Senator Hancock. Call the absent members.
This is SB 1432. Wyland.
This is 22.
Senate Bill 1432.
Aye.
Wyland, aye. It has sufficient votes.
Sufficient votes. We'll keep the roll open. File item 23, Senator Cedillo. Call the absent members.
SB 1460. Hancock.
Aye.
Hancock, aye. And submitting.
Okay, the measure remains on call.
We have the consent items.
The consent calendar. Call the absent members.
Hancock.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Consent calendar.
Oh, aye.
Hancock, aye. And that leaves just Maldonado and Alquist on that.
Okay, sufficient votes. We'll keep the roll open. Members, then, oh, here's Senator Semidion. want to just go ahead and let's let him? Sure. All right, let's go ahead with Senator Simitian, probably, just calling Senator Simitian at this point. Special treatment.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Must be something in that, who knows? Okay.
Item 2, SB 930.
Simitian, aye.
Simitian, it has sufficient votes. You want to know?
Is it?
No, because we have Maldonado. I don't know if he's coming or not.
Sergeants, is Senator Maldonado coming to committee today? He's not coming. It's okay. So let's go ahead and close the roll on this then.
Close the roll. Okay.
What the votes?
6-2.
6-2. That measure is out.
Where's the chair on this one? This is her bill.
Okay.
Is it a good bill?
Which one are you talking about? Which item?
The partnership account. This one here?
State of Oakland. Are you leaving? Is that the only one?
Wyland already voted, and Hancock voted.
Open the roll on his, on the Hancock, the career partnership. What's the file item?
22, you said?
Okay, we're going to open the roll on file item 22, Senator Hancock's bill. Call the absent members. File item 22.
This is SB 1432.
No, I'm already an aye.
You're already not, yeah.
You want 18 is what you want.
Okay.
Simitian on item 22.
Aye.
Simitian, aye. That's 7, has 7 votes.
Oh, waiting for
Maldonado and
Alquist.
Alquist, yeah.
Okay, let's keep that measure, that roll open.
It's 8.
Okay, file item 18, Senator Wyland's requesting file item 18 to be opened. Call the absent members on file item 18, SB 1354 by Senator Hancock.
Okay, Alquist, Maldonado, Simitian.
Aye.
Simitian, aye. It has enough votes to get out. It's 5-2.
I'm looking at
But
Alquist.
Alquist isn't.
Okay, it has sufficient votes. We will keep the roll open.
You have a no.
Yes. All right, we're going to go back to then our regular roll order. Okay, we're on file item 3. File item 3, SB 956 by Romero. Call the absent members.
Simitian.
Aye.
Simitian, aye.
Okay, it's still on call.
Yes.
File item 8.
SB 1148. Simitian.
Aye.
Simitian, aye. It's got 8 votes.
Okay, 8 votes. That bill is out. Well, the only one's out.
Maldonado.
No, he's
yeah.
gone.
Oh, he's just gone? Okay. I didn't know that.
Okay, file item 9. Senator Desaulniers, call the absent members.
SB 1157. Simitian.
Aye.
Simitian, aye. Still
It
is all.
has sufficient votes. We'll keep the roll open. File item 10, Senator Lowenthal, call the absent members.
SB 1161. Price isn't here. Okay. Simitian?
Aye.
Simitian, aye. It has enough votes, but it stays on.
Okay, there is sufficient votes. We'll keep the roll open. File item 11, Senator Wiggins, call the absent members.
SB 1191. Simitian?
Aye.
Simitian, aye. It has enough votes.
Sufficient votes. We'll keep the roll open. File item 12, Senator Lowenthal, 1193.
Simitian?
Aye.
Simitian, aye. It doesn't have enough votes.
Okay, the measure is still on call. File item 14 by Senator Yee, call the absent members.
SB 1225. Simitian?
Aye.
Simitian, aye. It has sufficient votes.
Sufficient votes. We'll keep the roll open. File item 15, call the absent members for Senator Hancock.
SB 1298. Oh, that's,
Is
we're
that
just
it?
waiting for Alquist on that one.
Okay.
Keep it
We're waiting for Alquist. Keep the roll open. File item 19 by Senator Steinberg.
SB
Call the absent members.
1357. Simitian?
Aye.
Simitian, aye. That bill is out.
That bill is out.
Madam Chair, could we reopen one more time file item 18?
Okay, let's go to file item 18. This is SB 1354. Call the absent members.
Wyland, no to aye.
Okay, Wyland, no to aye. It has sufficient votes. We're waiting for Senator Alquist. File item 20, call the absent members.
SB 1381. Hancock and Alquist are the only ones. Hancock?
Senator Hancock, do you wish to vote on this item? File item 20, Senator Simidian, kindergarten. Hancock, aye.
That's got 7-0, but we're waiting for Alquist.
Okay, we'll keep the roll open. File item 21, Senator Leno, call the absent members.
SB 1413. Alquist. Simidian?
Simidian.
I apologize.
Leno.
Item 21, SB 1413. Aye. Simidian, aye. It has enough votes.
Sufficient votes. We'll keep the roll open. File item 23, Senator Cedillo, call the absent members.
SB 1460. Simidian.
Aye.
Simidian, aye. It has enough votes, but we're waiting.
Sufficient votes. We'll keep the roll open. Okay, we're just waiting then for Senator Alquist to return to committee. Take a brief recess?
Yeah, we can.
We'll take a brief recess and reconvene when Senator Alquist arrives. Thank you.
I only wish I'd lost that much weight, Madam Chair.
I don't know. I think it's that water. Or the Kool-Aid. Who knows?
Price? Okay.
Around.
Yes. You will. It's courtesy.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, this is the final call then at this point. All right, let's go ahead and this is the final call. Let's begin at file item 3, SB 956, Romero. Call the absent members.
Alquist?
Aye.
Alquist, aye. And we're not going to call Donato or Price, right? Okay. 5.
5 votes. That bill is out. File item 9, Desaulnier, Senate Bill 1157. Call the absent members.
Alquist?
Aye.
Alquist, aye. It has 6.
6 votes, that bill is out. File item 10, Senator Lowenthal, 1161. Call the absent members.
Alquist.
Aye.
Alquist, aye. 7-0.
7-0, the bill is out. File item 11, 1191. Senator Wiggins. Call the absent members.
Alquist.
Aye.
Alquist, aye. 8-0.
8-0, the bill is out. File item 12, Lowenthal, 1193. Call the members.
Alquist.
Aye.
Alquist, aye. 5-2.
5-2, the measure is out. File item 14, Senator Yee, 1225. Call the absent members.
Alquist.
Aye.
Alquist, aye. 6-2.
6-2, the bill is out. File item 15, Senate Bill 1298 by Hancock. Call the absent members.
Alquist.
Aye
Alquist.
for today.
Aye. 5-3.
Is it?
5-3.
5-3, the bill is out. File item 16, Senator Hancock, 1354. Call the absent members.
Alquist.
Aye.
Alquist, aye. 7-1.
7-1, the bill is out. File item 20, Semidian, 1381. Call the absent members.
Alquist.
Aye.
Alquist, aye.
8-0, the bill is out. File item 21, Leno, Senate Bill 1413. Call the absent members.
Alquist.
Aye.
Alquist, aye. No, not here. Okay. 6-2.
6-2, the bill is out. File item 23, Cedillo. Call the absent members.
Alquist.
Aye.
Alquist, aye. 6-2.
6-2, the bill is out. File item 22. Call the absent members.
Alquist.
What's it? She's not. How many votes?
Not voting? I'm sorry.
How many votes?
How did you vote on this?
I voted aye.
Oh. Is she still not voting yet?
Okay.
Okay.
Alquist, aye.
Alquist, aye. 8-1.
8-1.
8-0, I'm sorry.
8-0, the bill is out. The consent calendar. Call the absent members.
Alquist.
Aye.
Alquist, aye. 8-0.
8-0, the consent calendar is out. Members, we have concluded Education Committee. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.